Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Live Show, Week 1 game-by-game review edition. I am your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great day to be great, and my goodness, what a great day of football it was. Maybe my opinion is a little bit skewed because of that Bills-Ravens classic that we all just sat through, but again, there was plenty of cool stuff to talk about the rest of the day as well, and that's what we're about to do here for the next 1, 2, 3, who knows how many hours that we have in store for us here on the Fantasy Live Show. Of course, I am not alone. I'm joined by the one, the only Dwain, the Rock McFarland, and the house. Dwain, how was your week one?
It's amazing, man. I mean, well, we have a lot of fantasy teams. Some won, some lost. Some takes were right, some takes were wrong. But that's what we're here to unpack. Dude, week one's always amazing. Because we get the final unveil, things we thought we knew, we don't know anything about, other things we thought we knew, we were right about. So yeah, just super excited to dive in. This is always one of my most favorite shows of the year. And shout out True Media for all this back end data that we're going to share with you guys. They do a good job of hooking us up with all of the utilization data so we can do that on this show with you.
And with that, let's get right after it. We are going back to Friday night here to start as we go game by game through them all. Back when the Chargers took down the Chiefs 27-21 in what felt like a lifetime ago. Shout out the Chargers for winning outright as 3-point dogs. The over did cash just barely at 47.5. So next week we have the Chargers traveling to Vegas to take on the Raiders on Monday Night Football. The Chiefs we've taken on Philly in a Super Bowl rematch to get your popcorn ready for those games. But Dwain, awesome performance from Justin Herbert, 318 through the air and 3 scores, and then clinched the game with a 19-yard scramble. This passing game looked absolutely fantastic, man. Keenan scored a touchdown. Ladd McConkey was getting open at will. Even Quentin freaking Johnston was out here going for 79 and 2 scores. He was open enough to drop a third touchdown on the day. So can't say enough good things about Herbert and that entire Los Angeles Chargers passing attack.
Yeah, man. Herbert, 4 scrambles for 36 yards. Obviously, the big one at the end that you talked about with the cool slide that just felt like he kept sliding and sliding. And a really cool moment for Herbert. But, man, just overall, the offense looked absolutely amazing. Since we just talked about Herbert, I'll just hit on the receivers real quick, Ian. When you talk about Keenan Allen, McConkey, Quentin Johnston, those are the top 3 guys. McConkey led the way with 93% route participation, 27% of the targets. Then you had Quentin Johnston right behind him with 88% of the routes. We didn't know if one of the rookies like Trey Harris, maybe KLS might kind of eat into that workload. That did not happen, and they were designing stuff for QJ right out of the gate, so you like to see that. Keenan Allen had the third route participation rate at 78%, but he led the team with a 29% target share, 10 targets for Keenan Allen. Funny how he was old, fat, washed, and only could work underneath the defense. You put him with Justin Herbert, and he's catching dimes downfield. Ian, you love to see it.
Now for QJ and Keenan, again, fantastic week ones. They will be moving up the ranks, Dwain. Not going to exactly solidify them as every week starters at this point, probably more so in that top 50 wide receiver 4 range. Ladd McConkey still our ride or die. Now, speaking of ride or dies, the man who we will continue to be starting because that usage was pretty fantastic. Oh, Marion Hampton. Look, Dwain, we were going back and forth a little bit on Twitter. I think it's fine to say that he wasn't great. He wasn't good in his first game. It's okay. Neither was Ashton Genty. Neither was seemingly every good running back this week, okay? I'm just not going to sit here and gaslight people and say, oh my God, look how great Hampton was on his way to averaging 3.2 yards per carry. Now, Chiefs defense is good. There weren't that many holes there, but guess what was awesome? The utilization. Guess what really matters at the end of the day? The utilization.
Yeah, we're on the same page at the end of the day. I know we were having fun together. People like it, I think, when we banter back and forth on Twitter. We used to do it more, so I was like, all right, let's get a little something going. I did go back and I watched this. I watched all of these carries. I will say the negative plays, like, guys, go watch them. The Chiefs are all in the backfield. The Chiefs were the number 1 run defense in the league last year, adjusting for opponents, minus 4.4 fantasy points per game against running backs. It got a little bit better a little bit easier against them down the stretch, but they didn't have Chris Jones the final 2 games. But the big thing is what Ian says, man. 8.1 fantasy points, but 81% snap share, 68% of the team's rushing attempts, 71% of the design rushing attempts, 100% of the snaps inside the 5-yard line, 61% route participation. Those are great numbers. Do I think Najee Harris will get a little bit more as he gets healthier? Probably, but there's a lot of room there. Ian, an 81% snap share, is absolutely elite. We rarely get to say that number. So I would guess that number comes down to like 65%. His rushing attempts might be more like 60, 65 instead of 71%. But yes, just game 1. Let's not freak out about Omarion Hampton, because if you do, guys, you're going to freak out about a lot of other guys that Ian just named, and they're not just the rookies. We had a lot of veterans that had big workloads today that didn't score a lot of fantasy points.
Again, not going to rank him as a top 5 running back next week, but he's still firmly going to be in the top 20, if not inside the top 15, aka he's going to be starting in fantasy lineups of pretty much all shapes and sizes. Over on the other side of the football, Dwain, very unfortunate injury, okay? Kudos to Mahomes and the passing attack for doing their thing, but man, the real story out of here is Xavier Worthy suffering that dislocated shoulder. Friendly fire. I guess Travis Kelce didn't take too kindly to Taylor Swift saying how excited she was when the Chiefs drafted Xavier Worthy, and he took matters into his own hand there. So Rap Street did say the hope is that Worthy can return with a brace this season, but doesn't exactly sound imminent, Dwain. So still have 5 long, cold weeks until Rashee Rice is going to be back in the picture. Hollywood Brown just got 16 targets. Sure seems like he's the guy we should be focusing on in the meantime.
Yeah, our big takeaway here is go trade for Rashee Rice right now. Not that you didn't already want to, but he's only going to get more expensive with every week that passes. So hopefully you guys got him on your roster, but if not, I would try to trade. Ian, you did mention Marquise Brown. Really interesting though, just not the down the field guy that we had seen in the past. He was getting these short little things like what they were doing with Worthy last year, what we've seen them do with Rashee Rice. And he's just not the yak player they are. So I don't want to take it away from him. To your point, 16 targets is always going to get my attention. You know me, 42% target share for him. I think it puts him in the wide receiver 3 conversation, though. I mean, 6.3 ADOT. He's not real great after the catch. If he doesn't get that big play, which is honestly Mahomes scrambling around, making something happen, busted coverage late in the game for the Chargers, you get the big play to Marquise Brown. So I like him, but I don't want to get overly hyped up on him. I know he is on waiver wires. He's obviously going to be a waiver wire priority because I would say that he is one of the top 2 targets in this passing offense moving forward. And we will always like that with Mahomes. But I think wide receiver 3 range for me, probably heading into next week, maybe borderline wide receiver 3.
Other 2 wide receivers making good things happen. Tyquan Thornton, who actually registered the fastest next-gen ball carrier speed of the week. Shout out to the former Patriot there. And yes, even in the year 2025, Juju Smith-Schuster going for 5 catches, 55 yards. So Travis Kelce did have a score on a nicely designed kind of wheel from the slot where defense just kind of left him alone. But yeah, more than anything, really was Mahomes dragging this carcass of an offense at this point to any level of substantial production. So I was hoping for more out of the run game, Dwain, but that's the other problem here, okay? We don't even have a running back we can fully trust because my worst nightmares have come true. That end of season usage in 2024 with Pacheco splitting work with Kareem Hunt is very much back in play this year.
Yeah, man, this is not what we want to see. And we know that this is a backfield that has, given us some things in the past. And to your point, even with Isaiah Pacheco before the injury last year, looked like he was going to really have the full workload the year before. He took over around midseason. So that trend did not continue here. We thought maybe it would, with the injury potentially being the issue that held him back last year. But so far, not the case. Only 4.8 fantasy points for Pacheco in this one, 42% of the design rush attempts, which tied with Kareem Hunt. If you look at the route participation, man, 46% for Pacheco. So he led the way, but 37% for Hunt. And then you also had Brashard Smith working in as well. So we've got 3 backs. It's going to be hard to trust any of them right now, in my opinion. We'll keep our pulse on it. I think Pacheco's still the favorite for the rest of the year, but I think the door's open for Brashard Smith to potentially carve out more work. But yes, right now, I think it's tough to look at Pacheco as anything more than an RB4 low-end running back 3.
We talked about him being priced as this kind of RB 26, 27 throughout the offseason, how we were 1 data point away from shooting him up the ranks into close to RB1 territory. Did not get that data point, Dwain. I'm with you. Unfortunately, RB3. No, don't do anything drastic. Please, for the love of God, hold on to this guy for the time being, but he will not be on the right side of many start-sit questions as we continue to move on. Moving on specifically now to Sunday, we had the Commanders take down the Giants in an NFC East battle, 21-6. Good teams win, great teams cover. Shout out to the Commanders for covering as 6-point favorites. The under did cash here at a lowly 45.5. So winners write the history books, Dwain. So as always, we'll start with that side of the ball. And another just overall pretty awesome performance from one Jaden Daniels, 233 and a touchdown through the air. Also chipped in 68 yards on the ground, continuing to look faster than pretty much anyone else out there on the field. The touchdown wound up going to none other than the ageless wonder, Zach Ertz, still doing his thing. Maybe we'll see Ben Sinek get a chance to play in another decade or so, but for now, this is Zach Ertz's world. We are all living in it. That said, Dwain, the real story came down this backfield because Chris Rodriguez was a healthy scratch, setting up the way for Bill Krosky-Mary and Austin Eckler to split things up. What do you see from a utilization standpoint between Washington's 2 big running backs, and also shout out Jerry McNichols?
Yeah, we got to shout out Jeremy McNichols. Like, look, I love you, Jeremy McNichols, but I wish we didn't have to shout you out, man. Like, this is bad enough that we got a 2-way split. It is a 3-way split, to your point. Krosky Merritt, 29% of the snaps. He did score the most fantasy points, 14.2 PPR. I know we're showing half on the screen. I'm just trying to diversify here, guys, and give you the other data points as well. 36% of the attempts, but then we had Austin Eckler get 49% of the snaps and 21% of the attempts. So it was really Eckler working more on the passing downs, 54% route participation versus only 19% for Bill. Now, I think honestly, like I still lean towards Bill being the guy that could carve out more work as we go, Ian. But to your point, like I don't think right now we can just be, shooting, Bill up the ranks. I would say he's going to be in that RB3 territory, but don't be surprised, like if he works his way, further up the list as we go. I will say Jeremy McNichols, the irritating part about him is he got the carry inside the 5. There was only one during the game, and he got the one. And, guys, that can be a random data point. It was in the second quarter, though. So it wasn't like it was at the end of the game and they were just trying to salt it away. He was getting in there and working a little bit. So Bill is the guy, I think, to roster here. Eckler, though, is a guy that can stay in that running back 4 conversation, maybe even low-end running back 3, Ian, if you are in a PPR league. He had 8.7 points this week.
And we can honestly see similar to what we saw last year, which is in the rare situations where the Commanders aren't able to build a lead like they did today, that's when Eckler is going to get a chance in comeback mode to catch more passes. Of course, though, with the way Daniels and this Washington team have been playing for the last year and a couple of weeks now, that doesn't seem like a situation where we are going to see Eckler leaned on all that much. Speaking of the passing game, Deebo Samuel, great call by you, Mr. Dwain. You had Deebo as a top 20 play this week all over the guy. 7 catches, 77 yards on 10 targets. Also chipped in a 19-yard rushing touchdown on his only tote of the day. So honestly, it left some meat on the bone, was charged with 2 drops, but looked good out there, Dwain, and also a surprise with the usage, okay? In San Francisco, he got so much flack, and sometimes deservedly so. Obviously, Super Bowl wasn't his best performance, but everything was schemed up, okay? He wasn't being used a lot of times as this real wide receiver expecting to go win downfield. He had 3 catches today, thrown at least 10 yards downfield. I mean, he only had 10 of those all of last season, so really encouraging usage that you're going to get to, but also just Deebo looks good doing wide receiver things, which is nice to see.
Yeah, an 8.0 average depth of target, which typically that's kind of shallow, but for Deebo, that he is getting a little bit further down the field. A lot of times we'll see that number be like 2 or 4 for Deebo.
Right.
So yeah, getting those looks down the field on crossers and things that he can naturally do well. It's one of those questions we always have, like, we assume someone can't do something, but really it might just have been the scheme, right? They're like, well, we let Ayuk do that stuff. We let George Kittle do that stuff. Maybe Deebo could do this stuff all along, but I do believe that the big takeaway here, like with Deebo, is just the fact that, man, came out with a 35% target share, Ian, on an 84% route participation. 10 looks for Deebo today. Obviously, he had the rushing attempt for 19 yards for a touchdown as well. 20% of his targets were screens, but man, working from the slot 75% of the time. So he was getting those mismatches against the linebackers, against the safeties. He's in the wide receiver 2 conversation for me. I already had him there this week, but I think he's pretty much locked into that right now, Ian, with the gravitational pull known as Jaden Daniels with this guy. It's just a perfect fit, man. We've talked about it all offseason with Cliff Kingsbury. And to your point, getting those looks down the field is even on top of that. Like, this is really, really good news for Deebo Samuel.
We talked about the long wide receiver 2 tier that even dips in the wide receiver 3 one. So why wouldn't we prioritize the guy who is getting more manufactured touches that we can rely on in a really freaking good offense? Deebo Samuel shooting up the ranks. Wouldn't completely be, mad about Terry McLaurin's production today. I know it wasn't great, guys. Only 2 catches for 27 yards on 4 targets. I will tell you what, though, as you're going to see tomorrow all over Twitter, at least when I post it, he was overthrown on a 69 nice potential yard touchdown down the left sideline. Afterwards, Jaden Daniels was smiling and laughing. I will say Dwain Terry was less, funny about the whole situation because he should have been dancing there in the end zone. So it was unfortunate. I will say, this is the same sort of 4 or 5 target, a little bit touchdown dependent role we had last year. But at the same time, I mean, if there is going to be a boom or bust wide receiver 3 who's going to boom more than he busts, it would make sense if it's a guy with the talent of Terry McLaurin attached to a quarterback like Jaden Daniels.
Well, and to your point, what made him boom last year, it was the long touchdowns, and it was there again today. You just know how volatile those plays are. I mean, the further away that you are from the line of scrimmage, whenever you're throwing the pass, like the deeper it's going, the more accuracy problems you're going to have, right? That's just the way that it works. You're going to complete 90% of your passes, it right around the line of scrimmage. But as you shoot down the field, you're going to miss some of those. Terry's still going to get his. I think he was a tad overrated, in my opinion, like in fantasy drafts this year, but was still a guy that to your point, you just said it. He's a boom bust wide receiver 3, but when he booms, man, he can still give you those wide receiver 1 week. So I still see Terry staying in pretty much all fantasy lineups. He was out there plenty, 89% of the routes. 14% target share. I think it'll primarily be him and Debo with a little bit of Ertz.
Again, Washington stuck at 14 points to the fourth quarter. Wasn't the most dominant performance in the world, but still wound up breezing past 400 total yards of offense, expecting bigger overall production days down the road. Maybe even this Thursday, Dwain, going to Lambeau, Commanders, Packers. A little bit too good of a Thursday night game for my liking. Again, I'm on the record. I like my Titans, Jags. I like it ugly, but Washington, Green Bay, that will certainly be one to stay home for. Over on the other sideline, we did have the New York Football Giants. Disappoint, Dwain. I'll say it. I mean, look, they really couldn't protect Russell Wilson out there, which again, given the fact you're playing the Commanders, wasn't all that great. And I don't know, man, when we see what Daniel Jones was doing, who we'll get to in a little bit, in Indy, it's like, well, Brian Dable, what exactly are you doing here? So again, not saying Russell Wilson necessarily helped matters, but he was pressured on 42% of his dropbacks. And just outside of literally tossing the ball up and hoping Malik Neighbors could make something happen, man, did not see much from this offense overall to write home about. That said, we do have some utilization stuff to talk about, because as painful as the Tyrone Tracy bust was for certain people here who really went out of their way to try to hype this dude up before the game, Dwain, apparently the utilization actually was there for Mr. Tracy.
It was only 5.5 fantasy points in a PPR setting, but 73% of the snaps, that's a running back 1. 59% of the attempts, that's a running back 1. Guys, the average running back 1 over the last 3 seasons gets 56% of the rushing attempts, so he was above that. 69% route participation, that's a running back 1. 16% targets, man, that's a running back 1 mark. Now, will he be able to hang on to it? I don't know. Like, he wasn't that efficient today, but I don't know how much of that we can put on him. Like you said, the offensive line was an issue not only for Russell Wilson, but also for Mr. Tyrone Tracy, if you were watching some of that game. So it's hard to pin it all on him. I do think right now he is the clear running back 1 for this team. Scatterboo and Singletary, they basically split the workload behind him. It was Scatterboo getting the 1 attempt inside the 5-yard line. So if you're in a deep league, don't go cutting Scatterboo just yet. You can hang on. Remember, he dealt with an injury that he was battling back from. But yes, right now it does look like Tyrone Tracy is in control of this backfield.
We'll give Scatterbo some credit. Had a real nice blitz pickup, and also just had a violent 3-yard gain on one of his first actual touches. Caught a little ball in the flat and was just throwing defenders off him. Absolutely love the way this guy runs. Not sure how long his body's gonna be able to hold up to it, but in the meantime, it will be a very fun watch. Mentioned Neighbors, team high 12 targets. Again, caught 5 of them for 71 yards. Ran crispy routes. Also, just again his body control in midair. It's kind of wild how Neighbors can just have this underwhelming game and still caught 5 passes for 71 yards. So 75 unrealized air yards was the 6th most in the NFL this week. Wan'Dale Robinson, though, Dwain, did continue to earn targets in his own right. 8 of them, caught 6 for 55 yards. Even got a few downfield, not exactly all the time, but anything else in this passing game you want to go over?
No, you hit it on Wan'Dale. I mean, he had 11.5 PPR points, 82% route participation, 25% targets. So just doing what he was doing last year, but we need the offense to be better for all of these guys. Malik Neighbors is going to Malik Neighbors. Darius Slayton played the whole game, 98% of the routes, but only a 3% target share. If you guys were holding out hope for Theo Johnson, 73% of the routes, so he did lead the way, but only 1.5 PPR points today with a 9% target share. I think we need to see this offense get better before you're worrying about stashing him even in deeper leagues. I'm probably moving on because we have some other tight ends we're going to be talking about later that might be on your waiver wire that I think are better options than Theo Johnson. One last thing I will say, Ian, 8 rushing attempts for 44 yards for Russ. So a little bit of old school Russ. He had 12% of the design rushes on the team. He had a 13% scramble rate. So 40 of his yards came on the scrambles. So two design rushing attempts for 4 yards.
We'll say Brian Dable had a few chances in that post-game presser to really cement Russ as a starter. He didn't exactly go out on a limb. So I still expect Russ to be starting next week in Dallas. But man, if they do have another lackluster showing on offense, would not be surprised if that leash is getting a little bit shorter. Moving right along, we had the Buccaneers take down the Falcons 23-20. Tampa Bay did cover as 1.5-point favorites. The under cash here at 47.5. So this ending was wild. Pretty lackluster game. I mean, Bijan Robinson busted off a cool touchdown early, but then there was just a whole whole lot of generally nothing going on. With all due respect to Emeka Egbuka, had 2 cool touchdowns and everything. But very end of the game, Michael Penix had this cool go-ahead touchdown with 2:17 left where he pulled almost like a Mike Vick reaching out for the goal line. And then Baker went ahead and threw another dime to Emeka Egbuka with just 59 seconds left. What's Penix do? Leads him right back down the field, only for Young Hoku to miss a 44-yarder to lose the game. So not lose the game, but, could have at least sent into OT and done some more cool stuff. But speaking of those Buccaneers, Dwain said it before, but yeah, Emeka Egbuka, what a debut. 2 touchdowns, 67 yards, caught 4 of 6 targets. Both absolute dimes from Baker Mayfield, but man, like if there was any doubt about us just basically treating Emeka Egbuka as Chris Godwin while he remains sidelined, I mean, there you have it.
Yeah, 23.6 PPR points, 97% route participation, was not leaving the field. Had a 20% target share, so not quite as high as Evans. He outscored Evans. Evans had a 27% target share. 16.7% targets per route run. That's a little lower than what we want. But again, like you said, he came up with the plays, scores the 2 touchdowns, 2 great passes, like you mentioned, from Baker Mayfield. 28% of the air yards, I think that is something positive. That's an 11.8 average depth of target. So we weren't for sure, like, is he going to be more like this 6'7" guy? So in this first game, at least getting down the field, finished the day with a 1.86 yards per route run. I do think he's locked into that low end wide receiver 2 conversation. We already pretty much had him there last week, but we're seeing that he obviously has this wide receiver 1 upside. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too stingy there, Ian. Are you already going higher?
I'm not going too crazy. Again, it was nice. It was a nice game, but I was almost expecting more like easier things. Okay. Again, I'm not taking anything away from the touchdowns, but those are dimes, Dwain. Okay. Like it's not like Emeka was just completely, putting defenders in a pretzel before, Baker's like, oh, I have 20 yards here. It really was, perfect quarterback wide receiver chemistry. Yeah, there you go. Perfect way of putting it, which is fine. We'll take style points, don't matter. And they were cool touchdowns. It was a dude's first game, but Deebo Samuel versus Emeka Egbuka around wide receiver 20. That's fine. Start them both. Yeah. We're happy to have them.
Start them both. Good call.
Not going to overthink that one. Again, Mike Evans, 5 catches, 51 yards on 5 catches, 51 yards on 8 targets. We'll see if he has bigger and better days ahead. But I will say, Dwain, it did seem like this Twiston Wirfs-less offensive line was struggling to kind of, I guess, assert themselves in their usual fashion. Baker Mayfield was pressured on over 40% of his dropbacks. And again, the passing game really did look pretty dead out there for extended periods of time. Also, the run game, man, Bucky Irving did find his way into the end zone on a really cool little dive after he caught a short pass. But man, 14 carries, just 37 yards on the ground. Wasn't exactly going out there being his usual efficient self, but man, Dwain, that's going to become a common drumbeat on this show today because pretty much none of the top running backs outside of Derrick Henry were ripping off big runs left and right. So the good news for Bucky Irving is that we still know he's a great running back, and man, was this utilization really something to feel good about.
Yeah, massive season loading if this holds for Bucky Irving because like the efficiency is going to get back on track. Like is he going to be, 5.5 yards per carry if they load him up? No. I mean, but if he's 4.5 and he does this, Ian, 77% of the snaps, that is absolutely elite. 74% of the design rushing attempts, that's 14 carries, 62% route participation, and a 13% target share, so 4 targets. So 18 opportunities on the day for Bucky Irving. He had 63% of the 2-minute offense. So he just took over the passing down work from Rachaad White. Now, maybe this has something to do with White working his way back, but he was a full participant, wasn't listed on the injury report. And we talked about this in the preseason. Like, we can't assume that these veterans are going to come back and continue to hold off these younger players. We've seen it with Devon Achane in the past. We even saw it a little bit last year with James Cook. And now we're seeing it with Bucky Irving. Absolutely took over this backfield. So 14.5 PPR points today, like I said, but man, this guy's going to be a top 6 running back if this utilization holds, and he'll have a shot like at running back 1 overall. And now to your point, the line has to play better. That's the thing. Only 2.6 yards per carry today.
Buccaneers will be facing Houston on Monday Night Football, so not exactly getting a reprieve in terms of getting to face an easy front 7 right there. So we'll have a little bit of extra time to hopefully get some of these bodies healthy. Last thing for Tampa Bay, Dwain, Cade Otton, full-time role after having this groin injury?
Yeah, 87% routes, 10% target share, but 0 PPR points for us today. One last thing, Baker did continue to be the scrambling, rambling man, Ian. 5 attempts for 39 yards, 4 scrambles, and he had a kneel down that went against him. So really just 4 attempts, and they were all scrambles for 39 yards. So 22.6 PPR points for Baker today, even though he didn't throw for a ton of yards, threw for the 3 touchdowns.
You always know you're going to get like a jacked up Baker first down signal or a fist pump as well. Love watching that dude play football. Good win for the fighting Baker Mayfields. Now for the Atlanta Falcons. Again, mentioned like Michael Penix really did everything in his power to put them in a position to win the game. Between Penix, Lamar, and Justin Fields, man, really, really good performances that unfortunately just weren't quite enough to get that W. I'm sure all the talking heads on Monday, was perfectly give them the credit they deserve here, but we will at least on the Fantasy Life show. But yeah, man, 298 yards, 1 touchdown passing. And I mentioned that again, go ahead touchdown on the ground where he looked good, man. That was a question we had because he had that, 40-yard dash that he ran, I guess at his camp or whatever. It wasn't at the combine, but it was surprising because, again, it wasn't really a piece of him that we saw in college post, obviously, the devastating knee injury at Indiana. So, man, Dwain, if we can see Penix put together just 15, 20 rushing yards, find his way into the end zone a couple times, that could be the difference over the course of a season between him being more of this stationary statue QB2 versus a low-end QB1.
Absolutely. These rushing yards like this, like they really matter. And you guys can see it over in the projection model with the Xfinity best score. That's the ceiling score. When you look at these quarterbacks and these guys that are dual threats and have the ability to spike in two departments, I mean, it makes sense. I know we think about it with Jaden Daniels and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, but there's layers to these things. Like if this guy can come out and throw for, big yardage like this and add 20, rushing yards per game on the ground, like you mentioned, Ian, it is a very, very good sign for Penix. 4 scrambles for 22 yards today, 9% scramble rate. That's well above the NFL average of 6%.
And again, just really impressive down the stretch because Drake London obviously zeroing in on him. He was his number one receiver. Yeah, Darnell Mooney was out for this game. Should be back sooner rather than later, but London actually suffered a shoulder injury down the stretch too. So somehow Penix still put them in field goal range, throwing to Kadero Hodge, Casey Washington, and yes, even Kyle Pitts out there. So I will say, shout out to Kyle Pitts. Looked healthy. And maybe it was just because he always seems to save his best performances for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but 7 catches, 59 yards, actually showed some stuff after the catch. And I mentioned London, man, 8 catches, 55 yards. He now has 54 targets in 4 games with Michael Penix, Dwain. That is a 230 target pace for those counting at home. Not saying he's going to get there, and Mooney has missed 2 of those games, but my goodness, does this dude have an alpha upside wide receiver 1 ceiling in there. So again, man, it's one of these things where I don't want to completely hate on the Falcons defense. That pass rush did help get home, but man, Dwain, when we talk about the Cowboys, the Bengals, more weeks than not this one, I think the Falcons could be this fantasy-friendly offense where London, yes, maybe even Kyle Pitts and Darnell Mooney, these could really help out some fantasy teams this year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Drake London got injured on the 9th drive. It was with his shoulder. It was on the touchdown catch we thought we had, but then we didn't have Ian. But 98% route participation before that with a 42% target share on the first 9 drives. 6.6 ADOT, but 44% of the air yards. So 37% of the time working from the slot. So he gave you 13.5 PPR points. He didn't kill you today, but guys, it could have been so much bigger. He's locked into wide receiver 1, like maybe a mid-range wide receiver 1 with Michael Penix. Like we just need him back healthy. We'll see what happens with the shoulder. You mentioned Kyle Pitts. Yeah, 12.9 PPR points. And I do think maybe the most impressive thing is not the numbers I'm about to give you. They're great, but was watching him. That's the best I've seen Kyle Pitts move in the last 2 years. I mean, he was getting yards after the catch. He was quickly converting, from catching the ball to turning down the field. Just looked much more fluid than what we've seen here recently. So 83% route participation. The magic number is 80%. So he got over that. That's what we want to see for tight ends. He had 8 targets, 19% target share. 35% of the time working from the slot, even got a screen target. So they're designing some stuff for him as well. Just real quick, while Darnell Mooney was out, it was Casey Washington operating as a wide receiver 2. Didn't do anything, but he had a 98% route participation. Just for you sickos that might be playing in DFS and you're trying to throw a dart in a stack, it was Washington if we don't have Mooney again next week.
Are you willing to chase this Pitts game a little bit, Dwain? Because we do have an Evan Ingram injury. We'll see what Colston Loveland's usage looks like tomorrow night. But I mean, there is that tier of guys like Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert. We can even put Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews in there potentially at this point where, like, if you ranked Kyle Pitts as the tight end 9 or tight end 10 next week, I wouldn't call you crazy.
Well, I think he's right there in a tier of guys, to your point, that are like between 9 and 15. You know how it works. Like we have to say who are the top 12, but really there's a group that's right there on the borderline. But yeah, I think Pitts, still has great draft capital. And again, I think the key is the way he looked today. Like the numbers I gave are great, but he just looked different than what we've seen. So yes, I am willing. I don't want to say we're like chasing it with Pitts, but man, we've seen these tight ends struggle early in their career. Now, Pitts was pretty good his first year, but we've seen them turn it around later in their career, and Kyle Pitts could be one of these guys. Looks very healthy.
Still, I don't think even able to rent an RV in most parts of continental America. No, he does not turn 25 until October. So Kyle Pitts, guys, I know we were joking about having this very reaction if he had a good week one, but I kid you not, he did look good out there. And again, Penix will be throwing the ball around the yard, particularly with his top two wide receivers banged up. I mean, at some point, you just got to be willing to take a chance on those targets and just not even worry about who the guy is necessarily getting them at a certain point. So only other notes, Dwayne, is that Bijan Robinson is freaking awesome at football. Didn't get much going on the ground, only 12 carries for 24 yards, but chipped in 6 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown as a receiver. 50-yard catch and run again to start the game was longer than any other touch he had all of last season. So I was surprised to see actually the rushing stuff so close because Tyler Algier had 10 carries, but it still was clearly Bijan Robinson RB1 in terms of who was out there on the field, Dwayne.
Yeah, 83% of the snaps, but to your point, 50% of the rushing attempts with 12. Algier was at 10, 42%. So in a game that was, close. So, I mean, it wasn't like there was a certain game script really pushing it a certain way. The only thing I can guess, though, that is once they load someone up like they did him in the passing game, he had 7 targets. So he had 19 opportunities today between his rushing attempts and his targets. Sometimes you will see a team dial it back a little bit and get another guy in there to get some of the carries. But I do think that Algier's very clearly, I mean, we've talked about it. Like, is there a more clear running back to handcuff? Like he's one of the top 3 or 4. And with the way the offense looked today, I get it. Yards per carry weren't necessarily there for either one of these running backs, but man, it's an offense that we like. So yeah, Algier looking like one of those great handcuffs. Bijan, looks really good. 17% target share, Ian. All the 2-minute offense. He got 3 RPO targets, so they're designing stuff. He got a screen target. Very active in the passing game.
Falcons will be traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings next Sunday night. Going to be a rematch of that Washington-Michigan National Championship there between Penix and J.J. McCarthy. Get your popcorn ready for that one. Next up, we had a game that took forever because of yet another weather delay. There have been 3 of them in week one, but ultimately the Jaguars took down the Panthers 26-10, getting Liam Cohen a W in his debut. Duval, baby. Jaguars covered as 4.5-point faves. The under did cash. Once again, a recurring theme this week at 45.5. So speaking of those Jaguars, Dwayne, good performance from T-Law. Okay, I'm not going to go ahead and just rewrite everything we knew about the guy. This was the Carolina Panthers defense we are talking about here, but 178 through the air, threw a touchdown. Only was pressured on 12.5% of his dropbacks. I will say it seemed like Cohen did do a good job of that, but at the same time, man, this was a game that, again, based on Bryce Young's performance, which we'll get to shortly, really was never in overly, too much of a question. It was 20-3 at halftime. Panthers really were never threatening out there. So Trevor Lawrence, good stuff, not great. But again, only threw the ball 31 times, maybe bigger and better things down the road when he is forcing the action just a little bit more. Unfortunately, though, this meant that his top 2 wide receivers couldn't put up big time numbers. Brian Thomas Jr., just 11 yards on 1 catch, did help save the day with a 9-yard touchdown run, which was pretty cool to see. But then Travis Hunter also only 33 yards on 6 catches, 8 targets. What was the full-time offensive usage, Dwayne? Because again, we had Schefter and all these guys coming out and saying he was going to be out there a ton. And certainly just from, again, having the game on the quad box, seemed like he was regularly very involved.
Yeah, well, I am going to say, T-Law, let's get it together, man. Come on. Like, I put you in the top 10 in the ranks this week. Okay, maybe I made up for it with Daniel Jones. We'll talk about him later, but man, what a whiff. So yeah, we need more out of T-Law, but like you said, not going to freak out at this point. Travis Hunter, man, 9.3 PPR points today, 84% route participation. So it's not like he was up there at 95%, 100% for BTJ. BTJ was out there the whole time, but a 28% target share for Travis Hunter. He actually led the team with 8 targets, had 26% of the air yards. He was working more underneath, 7.4 average depth of target. You had Brian Thomas Jr. getting more over the top with that 13.1. He led the team in air yards at 40%. 38% of Travis Hunter's targets were on screens. 69% of his routes came from the slot. So they are dialing things up for him. When he's on the field, they're going to be trying to get this guy the ball. Yes, we don't know for sure what it's going to look like in the coming weeks. But I think at this point, like looking at this, like I'm pretty encouraged. Like we get a better game from T-Law, you would be feeling really good about Travis Hunter today. Trevor Lawrence is what ultimately ended up. Now, obviously, guys, like it all goes together. We haven't watched the all 22. Maybe the receivers stunk and we're running some bad routes and some of it's on them. Who knows? But the underlying data points for Travis Hunter, in my opinion, are very encouraging.
Still very much going to be in that top 30 mix. Not saying we're going to shoot him up into the top 15 and be this must start option, but I'm guessing again, more 12 team fantasy leagues than not, you are going to be go ahead and starting Hunter and feeling fairly good about it. You mentioned BTJ's downfield opportunities. He had 81 unrealized air yards, guys, which again, just to quickly explain, if Dwain is 50 yards downfield and I throw him a pass that falls incomplete, that is 50 unrealized air yards. So again, we're just trying to help quantify the missed opportunity on these incomplete targets. So again, BTJ fourth most of the week. It was nice he got that rushing touchdown. We are not overly worried about what's going to happen moving forward. Still very much a great football player. It was funny, Dwain, though, to see again Hunter and BTJ combined for 44 yards, and Diami Brown giving 52 for my 32 team league, Dwain. So we appreciate Diami's contributions there. And also, we haven't even mentioned the actual number one receiver for Jacksonville today, Brenton Strange, going 4 catches for 59 yards. So I'm guessing, Dwain, we did in fact see full-time roles for Strange and Diami, which, hey man, if you are in a deep enough league, that's useful.
Yeah, they're gonna use a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, 88% routes for Diami Brown. I mean, you're not gonna want to get him in your lineup in your typical, setup. But if you're in a league like Ian, you're gonna like him. I would say we'll call him a boom bust wide receiver 5. But he had a 14% target share today, which is not great, but I mean it's fine. 8.8 points. But Brenton Strange, man, 9.1 PPR points for him, 75% route participation, not quite to that 80%, but he was active with a 17% targets per route run, 2.46 yards per route run. The rest of these guys, honestly, yards per route run today, they stunk. But Brenton Strange was the one guy that was able to get it going. 1 game sample, guys. We don't freak out about yards per route run. But I think the main takeaway is this is your offense. It's BTJ, it's Travis Hunter, Diami Brown, Brenton Strange. These are the guys that are on the field. The other guys are really not getting out there that much.
The rest of the offense are these running backs we have saved the best for last year. However, today it really was headlined by one man and one man only. Travis Etienne, welcome back to the show, man. 143 yards rushing, another 13 receiving. A lot of those came on a pretty freaking cool 71-yard run, man. He had to make a nice cut at the line of scrimmage and then went ahead and was able to erase at least one pursuit angle. So, Dwain, next-gen stats, 20.19 miles per hour. That was Etienne's fastest top speed since week 17 of 2023. So, again, I do think some of those early season hamstring and shoulder issues that he had last year perhaps came into play a little bit. And at least for 1 week, man, he was the running back y'all in Jacksonville that Liam Cohen trusted.
Very clearly the running back one. I mean, it was a 3-way. All 3 guys got a little bit of work, but I mean, Etienne
4
had 60. Yeah. Well, yeah, 4 guys. Yes. We even had LeQuint Allen out there. He had a carry before Bajal Tootin. Travis Etienne, 18.6 PPR points today. You mentioned it, man, made a sweet cut on the play that he broke for the long run. Did end up getting tracked down, but that was a big part of how he had such a huge day. But that's what we want to see, the big plays from Etienne. Honestly, one of the better rushes I can remember from Travis Etienne. Yeah. It wasn't just a very clear hole. I mean, there was a nice hole there, but he had to do his thing and make his cut and then accelerate. 62% of the snaps for him, 52% of the attempts, so 16 of the carries, 47% route participation, and a 10% target share. He led the team in all those categories, 80% of the 2-minute offense, so he is the guy out there on passing downs. 8.9 yards per carry. Yeah, that definitely will help, and that long run comes in there. Bigsby, which you would think might have threatened Etienne more in this particular game script, but he didn't. Only 19% of the snaps, but he was out there, getting some of the rushing attempts. He got 5 of them, but still clearly behind what we got with Etienne with 16, man. So only 22% of the routes, non-active in the passing game, 0% target share. And then Tootin, guys, he's just a bench stash right now. Running back 3 at 6% of the snaps, 7% of the attempts, and 0% of the routes today. LeQuint Allen got the routes. So we'll see where this goes. It's funny, man. You don't see many teams keep 4 running backs active. Obviously, there's some special teams and stuff going on here as well. But Etienne, yes, man. I think Etienne has to move into the top 24 running backs. I think you got to have him as a low-end running back, too, moving forward as the upgrade.
Yeah, 100%. We're not going to be, again, zooming him up into maybe James Cook or Breece Hall territory more on him in a little bit, but certainly
another game like this,
top
we will.
24. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. So Tank Bigsby was, again, 0 touches in the first half, which was weird, but came out there second half. Seemed like he was a short yardage hammer. Do we have any stuff inside the 5 here, Dwain? Because, again, the one rushing touchdown was Brian Thomas Jr. from 9 yards out. That's what I wonder about, because I do think when they get to the 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, that would hurt there a little bit. But hey, ETN, again, he was the guy leading the way as a receiver as well. You can certainly do a lot worse than someone looking at 15 to 20 touches per week. And a Jacksonville offense that, again, scored 26 points, which was not easy for a lot of groups to say after week 1 of action. So I think that about does it for the Jacksonville side of things. Now let's talk about a complete dumpster fire of an offense, Dwayne, led by Mr. Bryce Young. A lot of people were wondering if he could keep that second half momentum where he legit looked good for a good 2 months down the stretch last year. Spoiler, he did not, at least for today. So 154 yards and a touchdown and 2 picks. He also lost a fumble out there and took a sack. It was somehow worse than that. I thought, Dwayne, he had another pick six, freaking called back on basically an interception and then on a flag, and then he actually only threw the touchdown. That was just a kind of random pass in the flat to Chuba Hubbard, broke a tackle and took it about 30 yards to the house. So was not good, man. Threw the ball up to Tedero McMillan a few times, which we appreciate. He ended up with 9 targets, caught 5 of them for 68 yards, but really, really rough, man. I guess the only good thing is that we saw Bryce continue to have this rushing upside, which has honestly been saving his day in Fantasyland. He chipped in another 40 yards today, and he can scramble and move around. That's good, but man, it's not like the Jaguars are the sort of defense that should have been bringing this out of them. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, very fair to say. I honestly don't think the day could have gone worse for Bryce. To your point, from a fantasy perspective, he had 4 scrambles for 41 yards. He had a kneel down that took away one of those yards. So that's really the only thing. Like, he did not look good when I was watching him. The numbers don't look good. And let's just be honest, like, this matches more of what we've seen from Bryce Young for his career. Am I saying that there's no way he can turn it around this year? No, but it's not the first data point that we want to see, Ian. So Bryce Young, if you are in a deep league, and you were maybe even looking at him as your QB2 in a super flex, I would much rather not have this man in my lineup if I can avoid it.
Had Hunter Renfrow open early on a slot wheel, badly underthrew it. I mean, it's just,
how do you turn that into a jump ball?
I don't know, man. But like, why did you have to trade away Adam Thielen? It's like the one guy Bryce has had good chemistry with, and you just had to send him back to Minnesota.
Thielen wanted out. Like, I mean, yeah. He wanted to go back.
$1 million. See if he feels better about Carolina. So
mind.
Mentioned Tedero McMillan again, 68 yards. But if you were watching the game, you would have saw a sick guy's one-handed contested catch down the sideline. Just played the corner like a fiddle. Ended up drawing a 26-yard DPI. I maintain he caught it. Now professional refs disagree with me, so it is going down as an incompletion in the box score. But keep that in mind for what it's worth. Also, they have another 16-yard catch nullified because a lineman leaked out downfield. So again, 2 ticky-tack, you could say, calls away from him legit going over 100 yards. Still felt very good. Maybe we got a little bit over our skis, Dwayne. I had him ranked like wide receiver 18. You were up even higher than me, but still someone I'm going to give another week probably in the top 24.
Well, I mean, and he was great. He had 27% target share, 9 targets, 41% of the air yards with an 11.6 average depth of target. That's healthy. It's what we want to see. 1.94 yards per route run, guys. You know how hard that is when Bryce Young sucked as bad as he did today? It's very hard. So I think Ted McMillan's legit. I think I don't know that we can call him quarterback proof. He had an 11.8 PPR performance today. If we go back and think of some of the younger years for Drake London when he had to battle this type of quarterback play, I mean, if we're looking for a negative example, London would put up these underlying data points, but we couldn't count on him as being a high-end fantasy asset. Why? Because the quarterback play was so bad. So we really do need Bryce Young to step forward. I think the big positive here for Ted, big first game for him. He did dominate, which you have to do to have a chance in an offense with a passing game like this. So I'm with you. I'm still going to have him in the wide receiver 2 grades next week because of the way he performed. But another really bad performance from Bryce Young. We'll probably have to look at him more as a wide receiver 3, but it's not his fault. I will say that much.
Had a real nice win against none other than Travis Hunter getting some snaps in on defense for a first down as well. So again, very much still believing in T-Mac. The Bryce Young belief is what really is starting to falter here. Last thing in Carolina, Dwayne, Chuba Hubbard, again, mentioned kind of the fluky-esque nature of that reception. That said, that sort of fluky reception is what a lot of running backs end up making their fantasy points on. That was one of the concerns we had about Chuba going into this year, was the potential for Rico Dowdle to actually be the lead guy in more of those pass-first situations. So again, just the fact that we still saw 16 carries and 5 targets for Hubbard, ended up racking up about 89 total yards, and again that aforementioned touchdown. The fact he did that, man, down 20-3 in the first half, that's pretty encouraging that this is still very much Chuba's backfield.
Yeah, and they wanted to stick with the run. I think that's the other encouraging thing here, despite the way that the game script went. And we saw this last year. They had 35 pass attempts. Some of those turned into scrambles, but 25 rushing attempts. So they stayed pretty balanced for the way that the game script played out. Chuba Hubbard had 17.9 PPR points. Ian, 66% of the snaps, 76% of the rushing attempts. 5 of those were RPOs. So that seems to be something they're really working into the offense this year. And maybe that's part of the mobility of Bryce Young. Maybe they're trying to unlock something there. Still only 3.6 yards per carry, so I don't know that the RPOs helped him too much. But the big point to what you talked about, 50% route participation. He was slightly over that last year, but he had a 15% target share, so he had 3 targets today. 25% targets per route run. This isn't necessarily ideal. Like, you would rather be throwing this ball down the field. Leggett was out there, but he just wasn't earning any targets today. Well, he had a few targets, but it didn't work out for him. But the big thing here for Chuba, 72% of the 2-minute offense. Rico Dowdle did not take that from him. And we have seen these guys that are not very efficient in the pass game lose some of that work the next season. That was not the case, at least in week 1. Rico Dowdle was only out there for 35% of the routes.
Next week that we're going to have the Panthers traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. And then we also have the Jaguars traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Certainly a bit more excited for that one. We'll see if T-Law and company can get a little bit more momentum going there in the passing game. Moving on, Dwayne, we have the Indianapolis Colts freaking beat down the Dolphins, man. 33-8. Indy covered with ease as just 1.5-point home favorites. The under did continue to cash though at 46.5. So Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, if you want to get up and do a victory lap around your office as I read off the stats, Dwayne, you have every right. 272 yards and a touchdown passing. Also chipped in 26 rushing yards and not 1 but 2 more goal line scores. They are very willing to give him those touchdowns. That probably should be Jonathan Taylor's at the 1-yard line. But hey, if you started Daniel Jones, you are very good with that. Indiana Jones, I'm hearing some people starting to go with that nickname. Whatever you want to call him, man, he has been getting fantastic reviews for good reason the second that he got outside New York. Maybe the Kevin O'Connell, can we include Daniel Jones in this tree now that he spent, a week or 2 over in Minnesota at the end of last year? I don't know. But Dwayne, again, crazy stat that they said on Red Zone. Only quarterback to lead a scoring drive every single time he touched the ball since at least 1991 is now none other than Daniel Jones. So again, we talked about how bad this Dolphins secondary was. Even Storm Duck, the one guy we thought we could rely on, also got injured out there. But that pass rush, man, couldn't even get to him. 21% pressure rate. Great performance from Daniel Jones. And man, Dwayne, it was just 1 week, but this dude, as we talked about, he has that dual threat ability. We saw it in 2022, and at least for 1 week, man, we saw it again in 2025.
Yeah, shout out to our projection model, Xfinity Best, which is the ceiling score. Shout out Xfinity. 29.3 fantasy points was the ceiling projected by our model. I even wrote, whenever I put him down as my sicko call, that ceiling might feel like our model is broken, but it's not. Jones can spike in 2 categories across rushing and passing. Here are his top 5 games over the last 3 years. 36.2, 30.7, 28.9, 27.8, 24.6 fantasy points. Tack on today, Ian, 29.5. So that would be the 3rd best on that list. He's cleared 22 points per game in 23% of his contests. Of course, that number just went up a little bit because he just did it again. 26 rushing yards. So thank you for that, Daniel Jones, because that was the first part of a 4-way parlay that I did put out there. The rushing prop was 23.5. I was worried, Ian. I thought there was going to be the kneel downs at the end of the game because they were I was like, we need 1 more carry from Daniel Jones to ice this thing. Luckily, the ball in the game ended with the ball on the other side of the field and not Daniel Jones taking kneel downs.
And the worst is I remember there's that all-time horrible beat where Mahomes was doing in the Super Bowl where they still had to kill the extra 3 or 4 seconds. So he really started to move backwards, rack up those negative rushing yards. So great call by you, Mr. Dwain. Again, my boy is wicked smart over here. Mentioned those 2 short rushing touchdowns, though, and they fortunately came at the expense of Jonathan Taylor, Ashton Dulin, and DJ Giddens all got to the 1-yard line on different drives and managed to not come away with touchdowns. So with JT, though, man, still had 21 touches, wound up getting 71 rushing yards, even 27 receiving yards, which was good to see. So no Tyler Goodson in this one. He is still coming back from that elbow injury he suffered in the preseason. So I want to get too far ahead of ourselves with, anointing DJ Giddens as this must stash handcuff. But at least for 1 week, Dwayne, Jonathan Taylor, look, we already knew he was good and everything, but I would be very surprised if the Colts are going to have many more games where they score 30 points and JT's not putting up bigger numbers. So just the fact that the Colts offense looked as competent, and not even competent, just awesome as they did, man, really good news for JT moving forward.
Yeah, it's funny. I put this tweet out for JT, and then I talk about, DJ Giddens getting 12 of 17 of his snaps in the 4th quarter. And all these people responding, this is a blowout. I'm like, this is why I tell you 12 of 17 of DJ Giddens' snaps came in the fourth quarter. What do you people think I'm trying to do here, man? Jonathan Taylor had 73% of the snaps still. Do you know what an elite snap share is? Like 65%. He still beat it even though he wasn't even playing in the freaking fourth quarter. Come on, people. Like, I'm trying to be nice to you. 49% of the attempts. Yes, that's low because DJ Giddens got the carries in the fourth quarter. He still ended up with, you mentioned, the 21 opportunity or the 21 touches, 18 of them came on the ground. He had 40% of the carries inside the 5, 76% route participation for Jonathan Taylor. Like, this dude's not leaving the field. And if the Colts offense is going to play this well, and I don't think we think it's going to play this well every single week, but if it's going to look decent, like, JT's in for a great year, man. And Daniel Jones is perfectly set up to run the scheme with all the RPO stuff, all the screens, all the easy looks. What Shane Steichen's doing, man, there's a really nice offense going here. And, we like a lot of the offensive linemen on this team as well.
Passing game obviously also had a nice afternoon, given everything we just said about Daniel Jones. Michael Pittman, 6 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets. Tyler Warren was going crazy. He had like 43 yards on the first drive alone, ended up catching 7 of 9 targets for 76 yards. Unfortunately, Josh Downs was the dud here. We couldn't have, every single thing go right for Indy today. Caught just 2 of 3 targets for 12 yards, but it does sound like Dwain, Pittman, Warren, Downs, the 3 guys we should tentatively expect to be leading the way here more weeks than not.
Yes. I mean, Pittman looked really good today. I mean, Tyler Warren is obviously, he's the rookie, so he's the story. He had 11.4 fantasy points today, 73% route participation, 31% target share, guys, 9 targets. He had a 3.17 yards per route run. He had a rushing attempt. He had an end zone target that was just off his fingertips, man. This could have been a bigger day. 1 RPO target, 1 screen target. I mean, this is super sexy stuff for Mr. Tyler Warren. And then we mentioned Michael Pittman. He was out there doing his thing. I will say with Josh Downs, a little bit of the issue here is that they're so willing to use these multiple tight ends. This was a leading game script. So I do think you're going to get in the games where when the Colts are not leading, you're going to see more 11 personnel. It's just going to be hard for us, Ian. How do we pin down the games when Josh Downs is actually going to be out there? Obviously, we'll be using the Vegas lines. We'll be using the Fantasy Life betting model from Mr. Friedman, which we also plug into the projection model. So we'll have to keep an eye on it for you. But we did also have Josh Downs really recovering from an injury throughout training camp. So I think that could be the other thing here. But yes, it does center around the 3 players that you mentioned: Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman Jr., and Josh Downs. Downs, we need the right matchups, though.
Shout out to Matthew Berry, who, when I asked him for his kind of like Kevin Ogletree, Sammy Watkins, week 1 baller who's going to be on the waiver wires and then unfortunately disappoint, he shouted out Michael Pittman. So, hey, maybe Pittman goes on to have a fantastic season and everything. But again, wouldn't be shocked, guys, if this is one of the better performances from the Colts offense. But hey, at least for 1 week, they were pretty great. Last one for you with the Colts, Dwain. Alec Pierce actually had a nice 36-yard catch down the sideline. Daniel Jones took like a heat check, honey hole shot, to beat the cover 2. And my God, the dude did it. Again, just like a fever dream of a performance today for Daniel Jones. Can't say enough good things about it. But was it Pierce all the way in as the clear-cut number 3, or was A.D. Mitchell getting a little bit of run?
Yeah, Mitchell got a little bit of run here, but it was Pierce that was out there. Pierce was the 3rd guy, and then it was A.D. Mitchell.
Good to know. And now let's go ahead and get way more negative and talk about a performance that was maybe even worse than the Panthers, man. This Miami Dolphins team, again, we talked about it all off season. The vibes, the Juju Smith-Schuster around the team, it just wasn't good, man. Again, Tyreek Hill literally started off the year in January by switching his Twitter picture to Antonio Brown leaving the field against the Jets. So there were red flags everywhere, and at least for 60 minutes of football, man, they were very evident out there as well. Miami did not even score until the fourth quarter, at which point Devon Achane, who always does look out for his fantasy managers, managed to take a short pass into the end zone. So that really was the only star of the day. Achane, 55 yards on the ground on just 7 carries. Again, 20 receiving yards and a touchdown. Miami only had the ball for a little bit over 21 minutes, Dwain. So again, when you don't see much volume here, it really was just a fact that they couldn't sustain offense, and accordingly, they had to give the ball back to the Colts, who, couldn't stop scoring. So Mike McDaniel days could be numbered at this point if we get a couple more performances like this, man. Not good, but let's have Devon Achane.
Yeah, he seemed pretty beat down in the presser. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Usually that guy has some energy. Didn't seem to have it today. Even kind of started to point the finger at just his team, and then he kind of quickly went back to, that's on me. But yeah, Achane look, running back one in a bad game for Miami, I think that's the positive. 16.5 PPR points, 72% of the snaps, 70% of the attempts. It was only 61% route participation, 13% target share with 4 targets. So Ollie Gordon is a bench stash only, 1.3 PPR points for today. Ian, 26% of the snaps, only 2 carries, 20% of the attempts. So nothing you can do with Ollie Gordon. You're definitely going to need a better game script than this, but this backfield does belong to Mr. Devon Achane.
I'm shocked that we even got that much usage out of the guy, dude. So again, there were only 9 backfield carries to go around. So maybe we see it even out a little bit more in the future. But the bad version of this Dolphins offense that we really did see for portions of the second half of last year revolves around them force feeding Devon Achane these short targets, which again, Dolphins fans probably don't love to see it. It's not helping the Dolphins win games, but we'll take that 8 days of the week in full PPR scoring here in Fantasyland, Dwain. So Devon Achane still very much an RB1, but Tua, get it together, man. Both those interceptions were horrible. He also lost a fumble. I know this dude has had so many concussions and he just wants to try to stay healthy, and he should be doing that. But man, watching this offense, just doesn't even look like the same group that we saw 2 years ago, Dwayne. This should have been a smash spot for Tua and Tyreek. Can you imagine 2 years ago saying we're facing this Colts defense on turf, indoors, healthy Tyreek, Waddle, Tua's good? We would have been expecting 40 points, not 8. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle combined for 70 yards, man. Like, are we going to be able to start the guys with any sort of confidence next week?
No, I mean, I think Jalen Waddle probably falls into wide receiver 4 territory. And then we've got Tyreek Hill right back to where we finished the year as really wide receiver 3 territory. I will say with Tyreek Hill, he did rest for the most of the fourth quarter due to the game. I mean, obviously Tua didn't finish the game. They had Zach Wilson out there in the fourth quarter because they were getting their wheels blown off. Tyreek Hill only scored 8 fantasy points in a PPR, 61% route participation, but it was at 82% over the first 3 quarters. He had a 19% target share, but the positive I will give to Tyreek, 27% targets per route run. Right. So, I mean, when he was out there, he was getting his targets, 1.82 yards per route run, which was better than what we saw last year. The other positive I'll say for Tyreek, 50% of his routes today came from the slot. So they are trying to do some things with Tyreek, I think, to keep him happy, get him the ball. We'll see. It feels really volatile right now. I mean, maybe we're keeping Tyreek Hill in the wide receiver 2 range. Those numbers I just gave you are not bad, but man, you talked about it. Tua looks terrible. The pass rush, the pressures, the offensive line does not look good. And then Waddle, I mean, obviously he got hurt in the third quarter. 78% routes before that, 22% target share before that. So those numbers aren't bad, but we need the offense to turn around. So it's more about the overall offense. I still think Jalen Waddle's a talented player, but right now that's not the way the offense is working out.
I'm just shocked that adding Darren Waller to this locker room didn't just fix everything. Man, that's just what I can't believe. So get healthy, Darren Waller. Dwayne, if the most obvious potential trade of all time happens and Tyreek Hill goes back to Kansas City, would you immediately go back to treating him as a wide receiver 1? I think I would.
Yeah, I think we would have to. I think the data I just gave you suggests that would be in the range of outcome. So yes, I think we would have him in the top 12.
We can dream. All right, moving on to the Battle of Ohio. The Bengals took down the Browns 17-16. Cleveland did cover, though, as 4.5-point dogs. The under cash of 47.5. This one sucks, Browns fans, and a ton of my friends are Browns fans, so I am sorry, fellas, but Cleveland missed an extra point, and then also a 36-yard field goal. Dwayne, the Bengals had 7 net yards of offense in the second half. Okay. They had 24 minutes time of possession. They were featured on my mismatch article, and I talked about the potential for Myles Garrett and company to wreak havoc at the line of scrimmage. 7 yards in the second half. I was like, okay, maybe Burrow will throw for 3 touchdowns instead of 5 here. I didn't think we'd get 7 yards out there. So, dude, these numbers, I mean, Joe Burrow throwing for 113 yards in a football game. I remember when this happened to CJ Stroud in Green Bay last year, and you were like, man, I just kind of thought CJ was a little bit immune to these sort of performances, like these complete and total duds. I thought Joe Burrow was too, man. Like, they talked the entire preseason about really coming out hot. They did come out hot. The first drive of the game, they went down and scored a touchdown. This was brutal, man. So Burrow took 3 sacks. They were all one after another on the same drive. Myles Garrett got 2 of them. I mean, Chase Brown looked really good early on, had a cool cutback run, ended up running for 2 yards per carry. I mean, this offensive line, man, the fact that this offensive line can be bad enough to stop an offense like this, maybe we just need to be giving a ton of credit to Myles Garrett, Mason Graham, and that Cleveland defense, because I just did not know the Bengals could be this bad offensively.
Yeah, I'm throwing this game in the trash, man. Hat tip to the Browns is what I would say.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett, thank you. Starting in my IDP league, that was great. I mean, I thought we were about to get number 3 in a row. So yeah,
It was
Myles Garrett,
close.
it was very close. Like he was there, and I know Scott Hansen was like, "Did he get it? Did he get it?" And I was like, "Man, come on!" Like he's laying next to him, but go ahead, give it to him. I'll take those points. So I'm throwing this in the trash. I really only have one takeaway here. Like it was business as usual for the wide receivers. The tight ends were like all jumbled up. Sorry, Mike Gesicki, Ian, 36% routes. But the big thing here is Chase Brown, massive role, terrible efficiency. Do you guys catch a trend going on, for some of these running backs today? 13.1 PPR points. And man, I thought it was going to be way more than that, Ian. I mean, he scored a touchdown on the first drive. He had a nice little cutback down inside the 5-yard line to punch it in. Looked like he was running with authority, man, 2 yards per carry today. But 74% of the snaps, drum roll, 100% of the design rushing attempts went to Chase Brown. 50% route participation. He did not play in the 2-minute offense. Those went to Mr. Samaje Perine. But still, man, 100% of the attempts, 51% of the routes, 21 rushing attempts. Chase Brown is going to be just fine. All your Bengals are going to be just fine. I'm just not going to panic over this.
Again, sucks we couldn't get the Mike Gesicki big game, but if it had to come at the expense of him, I'm happy Noah Fant gets to be the one scoring a touchdown out there. So last thing, because we don't T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, this needs to happen like 3 or 4 more times for us to really make like meaningful downgrades. Yeah. Okay. They're going to be okay. I really, really hope so and do truly believe so. But you mentioned Dwain. I mean, look, this week, guys, this is basically the top 12 fantasy RBs, sans Derrick Henry and Devon Achane, who were efficient. So good for them. Saquon Barkley, 3.3 yards per carry. Bijan, 2. Jahmyr Gibbs, 2.5. CMC, 3.1. Ashton Genty, 2. Bucky Irving, 2.6. Chase Brown, 2. Jonathan Taylor, 3.9. Josh Jacobs, 3.5. Amarian Hampton, 3.2. Kenneth Walker, 2. So again, whether it was just the run games being stifled by good defense, the offensive line's not catching up, the defense is playing differently, man, really is going to be a tough week to hold any of this sort of rushing efficiency solely against someone, because I refuse to believe all of these running backs are suddenly bad at football, Mr. Dwain. So let's talk about the Cleveland Browns, who, again, by all accounts, I thought did everything that they could have to win this game. Unfortunately, that is not the way football works. So Joe Flacco continuing to just rack up passing yards each and every time he gets the opportunity, 290 of them on 45 attempts. Wasn't the usual, I guess, gunslinger version of Flacco we've seen a little bit more often in recent years. Only had a 5.9 average target depth. But man, Dwain, again, not the end of the world in full PPR scoring, particularly when almost similar to Jacksonville, I guess, had the running back involved, but this really is a heavily condensed offense. They have 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and at least for 1 week, Dylan Sampson really getting funneled everything.
Yeah, so I think in the passing game, like it's not as condensed, but right now in the run game today, we also had a 3-way committee, but it was Raheem Sanders basically just early in the game. He got that touchdown run inside the 5-yard line. Didn't really see him again the rest of the game. But yes, man, Dylan Sampson, if you play in a PPR league, you were pretty happy with him. 17.3 PPR points today, 45% of the snaps, really took over. Now, some of it could have been game script. They may have just decided, hey, the run game's not working. We're going to throw the ball more, but hey, that's okay. We'll take it. Dylan Sampson was the guy they wanted to get out there more often. Now, 33% routes is not great, but Ian, they targeted him 50% of the time he ran a route. He had 9 targets today, a 19% target share. So he was tied for the team lead in targets. He had 52% of the rushing attempts, so 12. This man had 21 opportunities today. Like, this is what we hoped RJ Harvey would get. And Dylan Sampson was out here getting it in week 1. Now, we'll get Quinshon Judkins back maybe as soon as next week. He did sign with the team. Haven't heard anything else about what the potential suspension could be, so I don't know if you have any news there or if they're still waiting for news from the league. But Jerome Ford, I felt like just got squeezed out of this game. He had the chance early in the game. He didn't look very good. And they just really went more to Sampson. Now, they did give the 2-minute offense to Jerome Ford, which is not weird. A lot of times, they'll let the veterans have the 2-minute offense and some of this long down and distance stuff. But just wasn't a good game for Jerome Ford. I mean, he had 52% of the snaps, but that's all we can say about him. He had 1.5 PPR points. So I feel like, I could be wrong, this could be a 3-way committee. Hope not. But I feel like once Quinshon Judkins gets up and running, it's probably more Dylan Sampson and Judkins. And I don't know that we can completely rule out Sampson being the most valuable back in this backfield.
Per Adam Schefter, Judkins is scheduled to meet with the NFL this week about its investigation, but there is a real possibility and even likelihood, according to one source, that he will make his NFL debut next Sunday at Baltimore. So we are not going to be able to start him there. But yeah, if you guys were willing to, again, take a chance on the guy and you have him on your bench now, certainly could be a week or two away from suddenly getting him back into that flex RB2 sort of conversation that, again, we thought he was going to be at before all this stuff went down originally. So mentioned the backfield. And yeah, man, I guess when I say the passing game's condensed, like there's 5 guys, okay? 5 guys had every single target except for 3 out here. So, maybe that is just weird to say it's condensed around 5 guys because that is more than 3 or whatever. So regardless of that, Dwain, there's 2 wide receivers and 2 tight ends, in addition to Samson soaking this up. So when we do see your guy, Harold Fannin, really doing a great job out there and earning a lot of production, it shouldn't necessarily be the time to ring alarm bells for David Njoku because he still was quite involved as well, just maybe not as productive.
Yeah, man. Let's start with Harold Fannin Jr. because this is going to be a waiver wire pickup this week, and I am going to be supporting it because of the way they used him. So 72% of the snaps, 67% routes, guys, which is not where we want that number to be closer to 80%. But man, he still had a 21% target share, Ian. So that's a 29% targets per route run. They line him up in the slot 29% of the time. They line him up in the backfield. The dude had a wildcat rushing attempt for 3 yards. Kevin Stefanski clearly has a plan for this guy. And this is why they released Deontay Johnson. It's because they're going to run more 2 tight end stuff, and then they're going to put this guy in the slot. The next closest guy from the slot on the team, Jamari Thrash, didn't even get to a 30% route participation. So Harold Fannin Jr. has essentially taken over like the second tight end and the third wide receiver role, and he's just rolled them into one thing, and he's getting
RB3. Yeah.
Yeah, and the RB3. Oh, so yeah, Harold Fannin Jr., man, we love to see it. Guy was so productive in college. The supermodel really loved him. So, he's a guy that we touted. And so, I get excited to see guys like this. He's around 4 pick. We don't always get this. So very much believe, though, that he's got a strong role going forward. But to your point, it did not come at the expense of David Njoku. Now, you can argue with him getting more targets. That's harder for the targets to go around to Njoku. But Njoku was still out there. Njoku had more routes. He had an 85% route participation versus 67%. So these guys were on the field together. I had a lot of people asking me, once I put out the tweet about Fannin, do I drop David Njoku? No, you don't drop David Njoku. He's still going to get his. I know it sucks, 5.2 PPR points today, but he still had 6 targets, Ian, and he's going to have his days. I would still bet David Njoku to finish ahead of Tillman, and I like Tillman. That's kind of someone that really likes, Cedric Tillman, but I think Njoku is going to be right there in line with Judy and Tillman. Gets a little more crowded with Harold Fannin Jr. So I think what this means, though, is we really need Joe Flacco to stay the quarterback. Yeah. Because if Joe Flacco is at any point not the quarterback for this team, this is going to be way too many mouths to feed. So we could be talking about a scenario in a few weeks, like if the Browns don't start winning some games, of selling high on these players, but they look very talented.
Again, Judy, 66 yards, caught 5 of 8 targets. Cedric Tillman's caught a short touchdown, continued to really pick up where he left off last season. So Judy, again, I still do think is their number 1 receiver there. They have many millions of dollars that kind of assert that fact. Also, we'll say that he did draw 2 DPIs today, so target numbers could have been up a little bit more with that. But again, great stuff from Fannin and just a lot of weapons going on. And man, Dwain, if we see this Browns defense all of a sudden mess around and have these sort of performances against some other good offenses out there, who's to say Joe Flacco and these teams can't start partying again like it's kind of late 2022 all over again. So good stuff from Cleveland. Now, not exactly expecting them to repeat that performance next week in Baltimore, but you can dream. Meanwhile, Cincinnati certainly going to have a little bit of an easier effort on offense when they welcome the Jaguars into home. All right, Dwain, now we have a big one to talk about here. It is our Xfinity Game of the Week, brought to you by Xfinity, introducing the 5-year price guarantee. One consistent internet price for the next 5 years guaranteed. Steelers, Jets, amazing football. Who saw this coming? Pittsburgh took down New York 34-32. Shout out to Justin Fields and company for covering as 3-point dogs. And finally, yes, an over hit. And it was the single lowest game total of the week at 37.5 that they nearly both managed to beat on their own. So Chris Boswell ended up hitting a 60-yard field goal, Dwain, with just 103 left to win it. And now another great Mike Tomlin quote has hit the surface. He said, quote, "Our kicker is a serial killer." Only Mike Tomlin could have said that. But yeah, man, Aaron Rodgers, Unk still got it, at least for one day out there, man. 244 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, not a single interception. So, yeah, he is old, and we are not seeing the same fleet-footed Rodgers these days. He took 4 sacks out there, and although he did have a nice couple, the Calvin Austin touchdown, Ben Skowronek, like he hit some downfield ones, but at the end of the day, still did have just a 4.6 average target depth. So we are not going to be chasing Aaron Rodgers up the, quarterback ranks or anything in fantasy land. But I will say, Dwayne, like just seeing that performance, man, again, 136.7 passer rating against the defense that has generally been pretty good more years than not. Maybe Rodgers had an extra big chip on his shoulder because of the revenge game. Maybe he knew the Jets inside and out. That would make sense. But I have more optimism now for DK Metcalf, for Jonnu Smith, and even these running backs after seeing what Aaron was able to do today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 22 of 30 for 244 yards and 4 touchdowns, 8.1 yards per attempt. And there was a lot of design cool stuff there. I know we bag on Arthur Smith for his utilization. We'll get to that in a minute. But like the play design stuff was there, setting up easy looks. They had guys running wide open. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you don't feel like you need to cover Ben Skowronek, but he was getting into the end zone. We had Jonnu Smith on a touch pass forward. Of course we did. Instead of a running back getting a carry inside the 5-yard line for a touchdown. Felt like a flashback to Atlanta 2 years ago, right, whenever we were having the sweats with Bijan Robinson and Jonnu stealing the touchdown. So yeah, I thought it was a well-schemed game by Arthur Smith, and I think it fits really well with what Aaron Rodgers can do now. They kept the balance. They kept the opposing defense a good one, and to your point, or has been historically a good defense when they're healthy. And the Jets keeping them on their toes, man. They just didn't really know what was coming, and that was really good for Aaron Rodgers. So maybe this marriage between him and Arthur Smith, which honestly I was a little concerned about, can end up working out. And I do agree with you. I think the big takeaway here is seeing this ceiling from Aaron Rodgers. Not that we're going to project this every week. Does make us feel really a lot better about, not a lot better. We liked DK Metcalf, but it does make me feel better about him.
What did we get from the main pass catchers involved in terms of those routes? Because again, I remember the Drake London Sunday nights, and yeah, he'd have some good numbers, but you would just be beside yourself talking about the 75% route rate. So DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Jonnu Smith, I mean, they were the top targets production-wise. Did they have the underlying utilization numbers that makes you smile, Mr. Dwain?
Yes, Metcalf, 97% of the routes. I think he's too big for Arthur Smith to keep off the field. Like he could really hurt Arthur Smith. So maybe that's what DK's got going for him. 24% target share. And man, not just running deep. I mean, now we don't necessarily want an average depth of target of 4, but it is telling us that he's doing some different things. And I had the red zone on, so I haven't watched the all 22 on it yet, but I did see Metcalf working in the intermediate and underneath areas of the field. He had 2.52 yards per route run today. So very, very positive things for Metcalf, especially, man, if he's playing this role where they're not just asking him to run down the field and catch back shoulder fades and stuff like that. Let's open it up. Let's let this guy run some stuff underneath. Calvin Austin, 85% of the routes. He was the number 2 wide receiver, 21% target share, 17 PPR points. Actually led the team for Mr. Calvin
Austin. It's a baller,
man. He is, and he's a good fit with Rodgers, and he's a good fit like with the way they worked the scheme today. They let Metcalf, they kind of threw a curveball. He did the underneath stuff, and Calvin beat him over the top, and it worked out well. Jonnu Freiermuth, a nasty split, guys. I would not be counting on Jonnu Smith. I get it. He's a very talented player. We saw it last year. We saw it in flashes with Atlanta. If you go back and look at that year in Atlanta and you look at his time with Arthur Smith, really all over the place is Jonnu. We don't know when these touches are going to come. I would be willing to sell him to someone that really needed a tight end. If you can get anything for him, I will not feel comfortable starting him. 53% route participation. Now, when he was out there, 33% targets per route run. So they're dialing stuff up for him when he's out there. Freiermuth tied him with a 53% route participation rate as well. So not necessarily into that. And sorry, Roman Wilson, pour one out, 21% routes. We thought he might be the wide receiver 3. It was a rotation across all those guys. Skowronek had 15%. So not really a wide receiver 3 to speak of. We got the top 2 guys with Metcalf and Calvin Austin.
Rest of season, DK Metcalf or Tyreek Hill?
Man, I think I lean Metcalf.
I think I do too.
It's close. I mean, honestly, like you said, the out for Tyreek is a trade. I think, man, if the Dolphins keep playing like this, like there's a good chance Tyreek's out because, like, I mean, you posted the funny thing on Twitter today of him he's already having a meltdown over on the sideline. Obviously they got him a little bit more involved after that, but yeah, I straight up, I think you got to go Metcalf. They're right there close, but I lean Metcalf.
Steelers culture, man. Metcalf's out there sticking up for Jalen Ramsey. What kind of reality are we living in right now? Again, good to see them get that W. This backfield, though, Dwayne, really probably is the most fantasy relevant part of this. It was ended up dominated by Jalen Warren and not even Caleb Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell. So, yes, Caleb Johnson did fumble a kick return. Maybe that has something to do with it. But I don't know, man. He didn't lose it. And also, Kenneth Gainwell put the ball on the ground as well. So, whatever it is, for whatever reason, we saw in the preseason, man, this is a two-man backfield right now. And somehow their third-round pick, Mr. Caleb Johnson, is not a part of it.
Yeah, Caleb Johnson with negative 0.2 PPR points today. So sorry for anybody that had to start that. He only had 4.
Congrats to you, Dwayne. Congrats to you for outscoring him.
I did outscore him. Wow. Yeah. I'll mark that down. I don't outscore many players. Congrats to you too, Ian. Jalen Warren was the RB1, but we had 50% of the snaps go to Kenneth Gainwell, 46% to Jalen Warren. Now, Jalen Warren led in PPR points with 13.9 versus 5.3 for Gainwell. But man, we had heard, hey, Jalen Warren's our lead back. And we had talked about this actually, like, well, guys, technically like lead back could just mean like they get a little bit more carries than the other guy, which is really what this was. 46% of the snaps, like I said, 50% to Gainwell, 55% of the attempts, 35% to Gainwell. But I do have concerns, man. Like eventually Caleb Johnson's probably going to get some touches. Like, and so is this going to evolve into a three-way backfield? Like I don't feel comfortable with Jalen Warren. He was out there for 100% of the snaps inside the 5-yard line. That's good, but he got none of the 2-minute offense. All of that went to Kenneth Gainwell. So, I mean, he got some work inside the 5, didn't get the passing work. And another guy that struggled, 3.4 yards per carry. Kenneth Gainwell was at 2.7. So even though Caleb Johnson had negative 2 yards rushing, neither one of these other guys really stood out in a big way. So honestly, man, a backfield I'm still wanting to mostly avoid. I think Jalen Warren's a running back 3. Kenneth Gainwell's a running back 5. Caleb Johnson shouldn't be anywhere you're not near your lineup, but he's a bench stash.
Look, Jalen Warren, I would love to say that now all of a sudden, hey, he scored a touchdown. We can be trusting the guy. He is the RB1 in Pittsburgh, but unfortunately, that really is still just an RB3 in Fantasyland. So, again, maybe the role grows, and it is good that we can get touchdowns in this offense. Again, we're not expecting very many of them to go around, but yeah, not exactly, as excited as I was hoping I would be after that featured runner comment for Mr. Warren. Over on the Jets, though, Dwayne, Justin Fields, come on down, man. What a performance here. Again, revenge game. Maybe he just knew what was coming at him because it was the Steelers, but I don't know, man. I saw TJ Watt take this dude's head off on an ill-advised pull on a read option, man. So he came right back out there, kept on doing his thing, wound up running for 48 yards, not 1, but 2 touchdowns. But the passing performance, man, 16 for 22, 218, and a touchdown through the air. Justin Fields averaged 9.9 yards per attempt against the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. Throwing to Garrett Wilson and freaking nobody else. All right. This was a great performance by Fields. Yeah, a lot of it was, okay, him breaking the pocket, him putting a stress on the defense, and then actually being able to throw the ball after that. Guess what? That helps when you can run a 4.4 and you're freaking big and you're one of the best dual threat quarterbacks, the most productive ones that we've really seen in recent memory in Justin Fields. So just awesome from Fields, Dwayne. And again, we knew that just with no passing, he could still put up low-end QB1 numbers. But performances like this, man, got to give us some sort of just hope and, I guess, rationale behind believing there could still be that top 5 ceiling here.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of doubt it, but I think he's someone you're going to be fine starting, and you're going to get boom games like this. I mean, 29.5 fantasy points today, and we know what he can do as a he had 27% of the team's design rush attempts. That's the other challenge here for the backs. Now, having said that, they only threw the ball 22 times. They ran it 39 in a back and forth like shootout. They didn't feel the need to have to throw the ball all the time. They kept pounding the rock, and Justin Fields was a major part of that. He also had 2 scrambles for 11 yards, so an 8% scramble rate. So he's going to do his damage on the ground. He obviously had the 2 touchdowns. He's an erratic passer. We see him get hot. We see him get cold. My guess is we will continue to see that this year, and there will be games where it'll be like this, and we'll be like, oh, man, great passing performance, and there's going to be others where like, wasn't that good, but hey, he came through with a rushing touchdown and gave us 17 fantasy points today, so he didn't kill us. That's kind of where I still land on it. But yes, major hat tip to him today. 9.9 yards per attempt, dude. I mean, like that is just hyper efficient.
Obviously, a lot of that production did go to the one wide receiver on this team with a pulse, and actually a very good one at that. Mr. Garrett Wilson, the Ohio State Buckeye tandem, back at it, caught 7 of 9 targets for 95 yards and a touchdown, making Fantasy Life CEO and Jets super fan Elliot Chris very, very happy about that. So Garrett Wilson, Dwain, again, it's one of these situations where I know you've been low on him just because of the reality that, Justin Fields has not exactly been the world's most consistent passer over these years, but we've always been on the same page that Garrett Wilson is a wide receiver one from a talent standpoint. Yeah. Now, maybe, just maybe, if Fields could be a little bit better than we thought we would, hey, wide receiver 2 in Fantasyland, we can get there.
Yeah, I can already hear it from everybody. We told you he did it for DJ Moore. Yeah, I know. Like, this is going to be such a freaking outlier, and I'm going to hear about it all season. But to your point, the big thing is, I have always said Garrett Wilson's a baller, and I caveat it every single time. I mean, this guy's earned targets. He's done everything that you could ask for him. He just hasn't had quarterback play, and he did have good quarterback play today. You mentioned it, 43% target share. Almost half the targets for the team went to him. 55% of the team's air yards channeled through Mr. Garrett Wilson today with a 3.80 yards per route run. Worked from the slot 37% of the time, so they're moving this guy around. Very, very big day for Garrett Wilson. I do still think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride, but I look, we know that Garrett Wilson, whatever targets are there to be had, like, he's going to get 30 to 40% of them. Like, so that's always going to give you a chance. I do think that he's going to be a guy that will be more of a low end wide receiver 2. I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 this year. I could end up being wrong, guys. Justin Fields has averaged 180 passing yards per game over his career. It moved up a little bit with this one, which was 219. So again, happy for the Jets. I'm not going to freak out yet on Garrett Wilson. I will move him up the ranks a little bit.
Again, no other real main pass catchers to speak of here. Did Mason Taylor at least have a full-time role, though, Dwain?
I was going to say, just throw out to him 87% snaps, 84% routes, 5% targets. So it was wide receiver 2 was Josh Reynolds. No one cares. Tyler Johnson was wide receiver 3. Arian Smith was wide receiver 4. Alan Lazard was a healthy scratch.
And now for the backfield, Breece Hall, man. I mentioned all these running backs who did not have good, efficient days. Well, that did not include Breece Hall for a reason. 19 carries, 107 yards, and 5.6 yards per carry. Looking good, man. Also chipped in another 2 catches for 38 yards. And again, similar to just the kind of eye test narrative here, it was good to see Breece Hall looking like his usual explosive self. So all training camp, Dwain, we were just fed all this sort of hype about Braylon Allen and all these things he could do. We were shown highlights of him catching a swing pass with no one within 50 yards of him. We were supposed to believe this was 1A, 1B. Yeah, coach guarding him, come
like
on.
A 60-year-old coach.
Sure seemed like, Dwain, at least for 1 week. Yes, Braylon Allen had a nice touchdown, kind of pushed the pile himself. That was cool, but this is still very much the Breece Hall show in New York.
Yeah, look, man, they're splitting it up too much. This is not David Montgomery. Braylon Allen averaged 1.5 yards per carry. Now, we've already talked about it. A lot of backs did not have a good day on the ground today, but Breece Hall was not one of them. He averaged 5.6 yards per carry today. 58% of the snaps went to Breece, so almost got to that 60% that we love. But that's still a really good number. 51% of the design rushing attempts with 19 carries. 33% of the attempts inside the 5, but he had 75% of the snaps inside the 5. The thing that was a little lower than I thought it would be, his route participation rate, 32%. I thought that would be like 60%. So that was a little weird. Again, some of this data comes through early, so we'll see. Maybe look a little bit different in the utilization report tomorrow morning, but still ended up with a 19% target share. This is your wide receiver 2 on this team, which was the idea that we talked about that could be the theory behind what fuels Breece Hall this season if he is the second target on the team. And he had a 38% targets per route run. So while he didn't run as many routes, when he was out there, they were getting it to him. He did get the 2-minute offense, 67% of those snaps. So yeah, great day for Breece Hall. Braylon Allen, 31% of the snaps, 26% of the attempts. I don't know, man. Like, he's going to need to show something pretty soon, in my opinion, for them to want to keep giving those touches away to him over Breece Hall. Isaiah Davis also mixed in just enough to be a nuisance, 13% of the snaps.
And that's the thing. I don't think we're a Breece Hall injury away from seeing Braylon Allen be an 80% workhorse. I think he would split it pretty evenly with Isaiah Davis, like we saw for portions of last season. So all I have to say, again, Breece Hall, 85 of his 107 rushing yards came after contact. He looked good out there. We saw Justin Fields at the goal line. We saw Braylon Allen at the goal line. We saw a lot of this come from a passing game that, again, Dwain, we don't necessarily expect to have this sort of success moving forward. If you could flip Breece Hall for O'Marion Hampton or Travion Henderson, would you do it instantly?
Yes. I would flip him for Omarion Hampton for sure. Travion we'll get to in a minute. I think long-term for the season, yes, but he started slow today. He's going to have to work his way into a bigger role.
Okay. So still very much mid RB2. Don't give him away for peanuts by any stretch. But again, this was a hot game.
He played good enough that he could force them to give him more of the work. I think that's the thing you got to look at with Hall. We can't consider this stuff to be static, because Braylon Allen didn't look good.
Yeah, very fair. All right, moving along, by the way, just again, thank you guys to Xfinity. This was the Xfinity game brought to you by Xfinity, introducing the 5-year price guarantee. One consistent internet price for the next 5 years, guaranteed. Cardinals took down the Saints 20-13. Arizona covered as 6.5-point faves, just barely under hit at 44.5. This game was close, guys. Spencer Rattler's got a little bit of that comeback gene in him. He had a football in Dwain Johnson's hands in the end zone. Unfortunately, there were 3 other defenders around there, and he could not hold on to the thing. But again, spirited, comeback effort there from the Saints. I apologize to the Fighting Cooter Doodles who were there cheering them on. They couldn't quite get the win, but it was a good effort for a team that, again, was kind of down early and very well could have rolled over. They did not. But with the Cardinals, again, Kyler Murray just had 2 touchdowns, hit Marvin Harrison Jr. once. It was nice. We got a shovel pass to James Conner. He didn't disappoint in the box score, but took 5 sacks. And just why does every passing concept Arizona runs, Dwayne, have to look like a backyard football play? I really do think it comes back to Kyler's height. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but we just have not seen this dude consistently drop back and just go through concepts really ever since the DeAndre Hopkins days for the most part. So even that, man, is just thrown up to nuke. We even saw him do that tonight. So did throw a BEA beautiful 45-yard dime down the sideline to Marv. That was cool to see. And hey, Trey McBride, 6 catches, 61 yards. So if Kyler can just exist well enough to feed those 2 guys, man, I am fine with it. But just in terms of Dwayne expecting this offense to be actually like great, which, was a hope, I guess, this year with the continuity and everything, I did not see that today.
But it was another game. While it ended up being more competitive than we thought it would be, like it wasn't like they were super pressed. So, I mean, they were balanced today, 29 pass plays, 27 rush plays. I think that's what they want to be. I think that's what this offense wants to be. They want to be a very balanced team. And honestly, it's probably a really good thing for Kyler Murray. But I do think we'll get into games where he's going to have to throw it more than this. But yeah, only 163 passing yards. That's the real bummer. He did get the 2 touchdowns, to your point. I will say the touchdown to Marv, at least it wasn't just like 3 fades in the back corner.
Mesh!
They used him on a mesh concept and basically the play that knocked Xavier Worthy out for maybe the season. Marv did not get knocked out by his tight end and came open and caught the touchdown pass. So Kyler, look, I guess the way I look at this is, he still scored 18.3 fantasy points. And like, even though we were down on Kyler last year, like he was still a top 12 fantasy quarterback, right? He was always there. And that's the thing with him. Even when he has these games, you look up and you're like, well, I can live with it, but we want the booms, and we want more of the booms. We want to see Kyler give us those 25, 30-point performances. 38 rushing yards though today, 3.8 points, man. When you get to stack that on top of, what you do as a passer, we talk about it all the time. It goes a lot longer way than what people think. 11% scramble rate and handled 13% of the design rush attempts in this game.
Also a situation where they threw Marvin Harrison Jr. a screen. Dwayne, I checked the entirety of last season, 17 games. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 0 screens. They gave him 1 today. And we've talked about it. Look, he's not Malik Neighbors. He's not someone who you should be force feeding screens to or anything like that. But he is your number 1 receiver. It's okay to get them involved, get them in the flow of the offense from time to time, man. I did like to see that. So again, good game for Marv. It was fun seeing a touchdown. Are we immediately going to be ranking him inside the top 10? No, but certainly, going to be, I think, arguing for a spot inside the top 24, particularly with the Cardinals continuing to have a very, very nice schedule setting up for them in the early going. Trey McBride obviously doing Trey McBride things. Nice game, 6 catches, 61 yards. They were trying to target him inside the 10-yard line as well. As we know, sometimes a little bit harder to get that dude the ball in the end zone. I think the big story here, though, Dwayne, is unfortunately James Conner may be facing a little bit more competition in this backfield than expected.
Yeah, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was pretty worried. It's right around where I had Connor projected for the year, but I was already projecting Benson to have a little bit more work. But 64% of the snaps still went to James Conner. He gave you 14.4 PPR points today, so he didn't kill you. But yes, 52% of the rushing attempts. Again, that's where I've got him projected. But, it's a guy that you want to see closer to 60. 35% of the attempts did go to Trey Benson. He had 8 of the rushing attempts. But as far as the carries inside the 5, or all the work inside the 5, snaps, carries, all of it, 100% of it went to James Conner. So that's still a positive. And he still clearly outdistanced Trey Benson in the passing game, almost a 60% route participation for Connor. So that's still in running back one territory. And he had 4 targets. So he had a 14% target share. So in the passing game, we've got Trey McBride, 9 targets. We've got Marv right behind him. And then we had James Conner really as the third guy. So I'm not going to freak out about it too much. I will say Trey Benson, that's the best run we've seen him have. You guys probably all saw the highlight of it. He made a nice little move, gets to the outside, turns, kind of stumbled for a second, but got his feet back together and got the long run down the sideline. So look, I know some people I saw on Twitter saying, hey, it's going to be a takeover by Benson. Like, could that happen? I mean, yeah, but I think it's more of a 1A, 1B is probably that's where I'm at. I'm with you. I think it's going to take an injury to James Conner for Trey Benson to take over. Now, having said that, Trey Benson did look good enough that, man, if something does happen to James Conner, I think we're going to have a little more confidence in him, right? I think this is this was a step forward that we want to see. Very small sample, but it's the data point we have. So Trey Benson, like, he really should be rostered in all formats. I know you guys are listening to this, you're sickos. He is rostered. You're like, hey, Dwayne, just shut the hell up. So I will. But, we do get some people that play in 8-teamers and they're like, oh, this Trey Benson guy's available. Yeah, he's a nice handcuff.
Dude, I was just happy to see Amari DiMercado not be involved at all. He kind of was playing that Ty Johnson pass down role. And again, wasn't expecting him to be the handcuff or anything like that, but it was enough of a concern to maybe cap Trey Benson's handcuff upside. Now I certainly am feeling good about having him once again up there in that upper echelon. Yeah.
The one thing I would say too, and like Mojul, we love Mojul. He's in the chat here and he's talking about Benson, the big playability that Connor doesn't have anymore. And I just think that's a misnomer. I mean, the last 2 years in this scheme, James Conner has been one of the more explosive backs in the league as far as breaking carries of 10 plus yards, which is really what, that's the big thing, right? We want that consistency. So yes, Trey Benson looked really good, but I would not assume that James Conner is a guy that the Cardinals are going to view as being someone that's not explosive, because he's been very good the last 2 years in this scheme.
Last year, guys, highest running back explosive run rates. Number 1 was Jahmyr Gibbs. We agree with that. Number 2 is Derrick Henry. Of course, it's Derrick Henry. Number 3 was James Conner. Okay, so yes, it's now 2025. But yeah, exactly, man. It's the HR meme. So look, I know he does it in a different way, a little more physicality to it and everything. But look, James Conner, he also got tackled at the 1 yard line on that drive where Marv scored. So again, very close to having another 6 points on the tally. I would really not be sweating James Conner too much. Look, again, Trey Benson's there enough that we can't rank James Conner inside the top 12, but look,
he's an RB2.
Draft him as a mid-tier, low-end RB2. I think that's what he's going to be more weeks than not this year. Over with the Saints, already gave Spencer Rattler some of his flowers. And yeah, man, Juwan Johnson helping out, all those diehards like me and some other weirdos who drafted him round 18 in best ball all summer. 8 catches, 76 yards on 11 targets. That was not the most targeted receiver, though, because Chris Olave, despite Dwain going in and out of the injury tent 3 separate times, was on the field enough to still earn 13 targets. He caught 7 of them for 54 yards. And this was cool, man. We didn't used to get these games with Derek Carr because, again, I'm not even trying to hit on Derek Carr right now. I've done that plenty of times over the year. Derek Carr actually had a pretty fun, appearance hanging out with Pete Overset and breaking down some films. So shout out Derek Carr. Shout out Derek Carr. But it was the scheme, Dwayne. It was just easier stuff for Chris Olave. That's what we don't usually see here, and that's what we got today.
Yeah, 12.4 PPR points today for Mr. Olave. 92% route participation, despite being in and out of the medical tent 3 times. What is there more Chris Olave than that? 32% target share, 33% of the air yards. But here's the big thing: 7.5 average depth of target. It's not just all these, prayer yards down the field. 41% of his routes came from the slot. So they're working him inside. Now, 1.26 yards per route run. Again, we don't overreact to a number like that in a 1-game sample, but that points back to, okay, quarterbacks, we need better play. And Rattler, to your point, did some things. He had 27 of 46 for 214 yards, but that's 4.2 yards per attempt. Like, we're going to need more from Spencer Rattler. But if you're going to be able to get something out of a guy like Olave, it's going to be in this kind of role, where, you keep the ball closer to the line of scrimmage, you keep the completion rate up, and it does look like they're trying to center the offense around him right now. And he's another guy, Ian, that we've talked about so many times. I do think Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, we talked about it earlier. He's not quite on his plane, but I think he's a borderline wide receiver 1 talent, man. He just happens to be playing in an offense where things have just never fully gone his way, and he's had to deal with all the injuries.
Not going to be ranking him inside the top 20, but I will say after this performance, I will feel better about picking
good wide receiver 3
and closer wide receiver 3 start set decisions for sure. Rashid Shaheed, not a huge day, 6 catches, 33 yards. Again, though, a little bit lower ADOT. Yeah, and that's great, man. Like Shaheed's one of these guys in the past where it's been 70-yard touchdown or bust. So again, the fact that we were able to still claw away 9.3 fantasy points here in full PPR, good to see. How high was the route rate for Dwain? How excited can I be here?
100%. This is going to be a career year for Juwan Johnson.
Pants are going off.
This is one of the preseason utilization things we saw where it stacked up with what the coaches were saying. And some of those things we get right. Some of those things we don't get right. But typically when we start stacking it all together, it means pretty good things. And at least early in the year. Now, these players don't always keep these roles, but Juwan Johnson right now with no Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau was also injured. So there were some injuries playing a little bit of a role here, but I think Juwan Johnson for the first half of the season is probably locked into an 80% route participation rate, 27% target share in this one, Ian. 47% of his routes came from the slot.
Wheels up. However high you rank him next week, Dwain, mark my words, I will.
You're going to go higher.
Alvin Kamara, 81% snaps, also ran in for a touchdown. Looked like his usual slippery self. Only 2 targets. I am a little bit concerned this Kellen Moore offense, Dwain, they don't force feed him the ball in the passing game. But that said, when you're on the field as much as Kamara and still looking like, you're pretty good, he's going to continue to be on that RB1 borderline at worst, man. And honestly, maybe we are looking at another situation where it's like, why didn't we treat this guy as a top 5 running back that he's been for the vast majority of his career?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to add here with Kamara. Like 100% of the snaps inside the 5, 100% of the 2-minute offense. 81. I could just say 81% of the snaps, right, and shut up. Like he's not leaving the field. And I have a feeling we're still going to see games where he's going to get targeted. He's just too good. He's not your normal check down kind of back. He can still work at the second level. Only other thing I would say is, Kendre Miller, RB2, didn't get much work, but he was clearly the running back 2 on the team. So he's the handcuff.
If you do need a handcuff in like 20-team leagues, then yes, Kendre Miller could be your guy.
Maybe.
Next up, yeah, I meant 20-round teams. Yeah, we're getting late.
20-round team, 20-team league. Yeah, for sure he's on a roster.
The Raiders took down the Patriots 20-13. Raiders were 2.5-point dogs. Good on them for winning outright. The under did cash at 44.5. Geno Smith, Dwain, 362 through the air, and he did it honorably. 10.3-yard average target depth. Love to see that. Did take 4 sacks out there. Also had an interception trying to push the ball downfield, but those things tend to happen. So again, Geno's one of these guys where we've honestly kind of looked at him deep in the kind of the depths of QB hell when you have the Matthew Staffords, the Tuas of the world, and always kind of pinpoint him as the guy that could potentially give us more. Are we ranking him as a top 12 guy? You should be going out of your way to start next week. No, but super flex formats, you could certainly be doing worse than a QB2 there. I would say the bigger stories, again, really are going to be the 2 stars that we spent such high draft capital on. Ashton Jeanty did find his way into the end zone, only averaged 2 yards per carry, of course, but I will say, guys, 38 rushing yards for Ashton Jeanty. He had 44 rushing yards after contact, okay? So do that math in your head for a second. Yeah, he was getting hit on average behind the line. He still managed to make the most out of it. So the important thing with this, Dwain, is that we need running backs who are going to be every down workhorses. That's exactly what Jeanty was.
Yeah, just real quick on Geno, what I will say, 10.6 yards per attempt in. And today, the Raiders threw the ball 34 times versus 24 rushing attempts. Now, part of that can be the way the game plan unfolded, and they just felt, hey, really the passing game was the better matchup for them. But this is, it's Pete Carroll. It's a Pete Carroll head coach team. I think we probably, if you and I had to bet like in a game script, like what they got against the Texans today, we probably would have thought that would have been closer to 50-50, maybe a slight lean to the pass. So they did really let it rip in the pass game today. Back to Jeanty, man. Yeah. Monster usage. If someone in your league thinks that Ashton Jeanty sucks, this is back to the Omarion Hampton thing because he scored 12 fantasy points today. Guys, just go trade for him, and don't do something dumb and trade him away. If you're going to trade him away, at least let him have the big game. He's going to get it. He had 86% of the snaps today, 79% of the rushing attempts. That's 19 rushing attempts, and an offense that played good. Guys, if the passing game is going to look good and they're going to move the ball, and now Jeanty's going to be getting these carries, he's going to have better games than this. He had 100% of the carries inside the 5. 53% route participation, 100% of the 2-minute offense. Dude's not leaving the field, and Raheem Mostert was inactive. Zamir White was all they had out there as the running back 2. This backfield completely belonged to Ashton Jeanty.
Still very much could be firing up Ashton Genty as a top 10 running back when we see the Raiders take on the Chargers on Monday Night Football. Unfortunately, we did have a big injury here. Brock Bowers, man. Yeah, guess what? Wasn't playing every snap. Didn't matter. He had 103 freaking yards by the end of the third quarter. Looking good out there too, man. Caught 5 of 8 targets. Reached a top speed on 38-yard catch, guys, of 20.27 miles per hour. From what I can tell, that is the fastest since Jonnu Smith hit over 21 miles per hour back in late 2023. So again, Bowers, freak among freaks at tight end. Unfortunately, did suffer that knee injury. That said, Dwayne, we did get a great update literally a minute ago at 1:27 a.m., which I really appreciate. Dr. Deepak Chona at Sport MD Analysis, one of the better follows in the space, in my humble opinion. He said video suggests mild MCL sprain, average 1 to 2 weeks, but he was moving relatively well on the sideline, and his comments similarly suggest mild severity, lean towards a return in week 2 without a dip in performance. We did get Bowers himself saying after the game that he's fine. I tend to think he's fine. And then I also tend to think that he might be the single best tight end in the league already.
Yeah, he wanted to get back in the game. Trainers would not let him. So let's get rid of he got hurt on the 9th drive of the game. So in the first 8 drives, I know the first half was kind of weird and we saw some snap shares in the first half. Hat tip out to Jacob Gibbs. He and I battling, to put the utilization stuff out there. Love Jacob. But I think he was the one that had the 50% routes, 75% on the first 8 drives before the injury. So I don't know what was going on in the first half, but it was really fine. 30% target share over those 8 drives with 28% of the air yards. Here's the big thing, Ian. 10.3 average depth of target. So last year where he was just more of an underneath target, now again, could be a 1-game sample thing, but was working more down the field. And guys, historically, the tight ends that have absolutely broken fantasy football wide open, they do 2 things. They earn targets, number 1, and number 2, they do it down the field and they score the touchdowns because of that. Rob Gronkowski, Jimmy Graham, the year that Mark Andrews, 3 years ago when he went nuclear, they did these things. And so it's on the table that we could see Bowers as more than just a check down underneath sort of player, especially when you got a guy we'll talk about in a second, Jacoby Myers, work in the underneath and intermediate areas. They might have a little bit of a different game plan for Brock Bowers this year.
Dwayne mentioned Jacoby. And yeah, when your quarterback throws for 362, you can enable more than one high-end pass catcher. And accordingly, Jacoby caught 8 of 10 targets for 97 yards. Also had Trey Tucker catching 54 yards and a touchdown. Had a safety matchup on him on the slot, but hey, good on him. Even Deontay Thornton, Dwayne, had a nice little double move, reeled in, a 36-yard deep ball to essentially ice the game there at the end. Heck, even Michael Mayer went out there in relief and had 4 catches for 38 yards. So we've continued to be high on the Notre Dame product. Even Pete Carroll after the game said he ain't a number 2 tight end. We got ones. I tend to agree with him, man. So this Raiders offense, I know they only scored 20 points, but the Patriots are a defense that we expected to at least be average to above average out there. This was also one of the games, actually the game where we had the most kind of weather impact. This was a soggy field out there. So, man, Dwayne, again, we're expecting Bowers to be back, but Jacoby could be a legit wide receiver too. He's done that the last 2 years after all. And then, man, Tucker, Thornton, no, I'm not going to be rushing to fire them up the ranks, but hey, man, my 32-team league waiver wire, look out.
Yeah, I'll rapid fire these, but we'll start. I mean, Jacoby Myers, obviously in any games without Brock Bowers, he's locked into the wide receiver 2 conversation. The way I put it, he's getting that JSN treatment. We saw JSN, working a very similar role last year with Geno Smith, and man, he will just drop those dots. You don't have to be that open for him to target you. And I'm not saying Myers isn't getting open, but he'll go to you even if it's tight coverage. Geno is that kind of guy, and he's got the accuracy to do it. Wasn't leaving the field 97% of the routes, 30% target share, 10 targets on the day. It was mostly underneath, 8.3 ADOT, 23% of the air yards, but 1 RPO target, 2 screen targets. So, I mean, they're going out of their way to give him design looks as well. So, I mean, anytime we have a guy that might get 6 or 7 targets and then they want to add on another 3 for us just by gimmies, we'll absolutely take it. Jacoby Myers, why were you wanting to be traded away from this offense, man? 17.7 PPR points today. Michael Mayer, you mentioned just real quick, after Bowers left, 70% route participation and a 30% target share for Michael Mayer. Very small sample, guys, but if you are in a deep league and you don't have an option to go pick up for Brock Bowers because Harold Fannin Jr., for whatever reason, is not on your waiver wire, you can do worse than just grabbing Mayer and let him be the guy if we don't have Bowers next week. Trey Tucker, I'm going to say no. Fugazi, 8% targets per route run. He didn't leave the field, but we've seen him. We've seen him for 2 years and he's had full-time roles, never really be a target earner. He did catch the touchdown. I know Geno said nice things about him. Dante Thornton, 63% route participation. So it's not somebody we can trust yet in our lineups. And we thought he might be closer to a full-time role. So really more of a stash in deeper leagues right now. And I will say Jack Besh continues to be buried. A 5% route participation for him, despite the retirement of Mr. Amari Cooper.
He did catch one. Looked nice doing it, but
He did catch
he's
one.
not playing it right now. So it is funny with Michael Mayer. It reminds me of the Ertz Goddard thing, but the ages are flipped here. Okay. But
Right.
if Bowers is going to miss time, we're not putting Mayer in Bowers' spot inside the top 3 or anything like that. But low end tight end 1, I really do think it's possible for this dude. Again, he was a great prospect coming out of Notre Dame. So final note, Jacoby, man, not only was getting those targets, he was making people miss with the ball in his hand, Dwayne. Usually we see running backs topping the charts in terms of missed tackles forced. He was credited with 6 today. Man, no other wide receiver had more than 3. And just again, based on what I saw out there, I don't think these numbers were made up, man. He really was making dudes miss. So shout out Jacoby, even said after the game, I just like being on the field with my guys, man. That's really my happy place. Great player. Love to see, again, everyone kind of catching up to that reality. Sadly, we got to talk about the Patriots now. I'm not going to put their performance quite as far down as the Panthers and Dolphins, Dwayne, but it really wasn't great. Now, luckily, Drake May still does have enough talent to obviously throw for 287 yards, which at the end of the day, that's what we need in fantasy football. But took 4 sacks. Again, the interception wasn't good, just kind of sailed it over the middle of the field. So I do recognize that, Kayshon Boutte, Hunter Henry, what's left of Stephon Diggs is really all he's throwing to. But just again, we talked about this, man. The Patriots are going from literally the worst offense, the worst offensive environment in the league. And even if they're improved, man, that could still leave them in pretty bad territory.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, I still take this as a positive. I'll take 30 of 46 for 287 yards. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also had a reception on a batted pass back to himself. He had 11 rushing yards, 6% scramble rate. He also had a design rush attempt, 1 for 4. So I think we're fine with May from a fantasy aspect. I get it. Like, it wasn't a perfect day from him, but I thought it was still encouraging. Like, this is a guy that averaged 238 yards in his full games last year. And so to come out and put up 287 right away, I feel good about Drake May, to be honest. I know he didn't score a ton of fantasy points for you today, but I'll take this.
Fair enough. What about taking Travion Henderson, having a 34% snap rate? I mean, Dwayne, Ramondre Stevenson, when he's out there giving you the 2.1 yards per carry, I mean, how can you rip him off the field? But look, all seriousness, we knew this was going to be split. The fact that Antonio Gibson was a complete afterthought, only a 7% snap rate, that's good. We have it down to 2 running backs. I am surprised that in a game that, again, featured the Raiders, it wasn't exactly trailing game script. I mean, going to the fourth quarter, it was still a 1-score game. So again, not a situation where we should have expected too much more from Travion, but just based on everything we've seen, man, I wanted a little bit more. That said, what we talk about with Travion, Dwayne, more than anything, it was the potential to get a spike in pass down usage. And with 6 targets today, and I think even another one that got taken back by penalty, man, he does still have that 50+ catch upside firmly within his projected range of outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, he had 6 targets today. He had 11 opportunities, which was more than what we had for Ramondre when you add it all up. He had 10. Yeah, it sucks. Ramondre Stevenson had 66% of the snaps. And you mentioned it, 34% to Hendo. But Hendo averaged 5.7 yards per attempt. Small sample alert, guys. But like, we clearly know he's the more explosive player. 2.1 for Ramondre. Like, how long can we really do this? So we talked about this, that it could be a slow start for, Hendo, especially with a guy like Mike Vrabel. And you guys, you may have to stomach this for a few weeks, but he didn't kill you. He gave you 11.1 PPR points. We want more from him, obviously. But look, 27% of the 2-minute offense, so they gave him some of that. He had a 34% route participation. They let him do a little bit of everything. It wasn't like they were like, oh my God, we can't have Hendo out on the field for these things. So I think you'll see the scales start to tip, especially, look, the Patriots are out here losing this game against the Raiders. So at home, I think there's going to be some pressure to want to get the better player on the field. Will it happen immediately next week? We can't say that, but I think you just got to be patient with Hendo. In fact, I would be targeting him if your local Hendo manager is in a panic mode. I would be trying to trade for this man.
Drafting them higher than the low end RB2. We had him ranked as this last week. So yeah, it would have been cooler if we could have, again, immediately bumped him up, but it is a 17-game season after all. Rest of the passing game led by Kayshon Boutte, Dwayne, 6 catches, 103 yards on 8 targets, 137 air yards, actually the 8th most in the week. Hey, LSU Tigers, man, if you want to say they are a wide receiver you over my Buckeyes, I will not be pushing back too hard. I do think they have the biggest cream of the crop there, but I mean, he was the number 1, even over Stephon Diggs in terms of the total targets. So any sort of deeper league sleeper allure for you at Boutte?
Yeah, I mean, I think in deep leagues you can look at him like my only issue with Booty. Now he was a good prospect, didn't necessarily live up to it at LSU. He had one good season, and he's had 2 years in the league where he's had these opportunities. He's not really done anything with it. And so today, while he ends up like with a decent day in the fantasy box score, it's only an 18% target share. That's more like a low end wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. He was working down the field. He had 117 air yards on 34% of the team's air yards. So it was fine. He had an end zone target. I struggle to think that he's like going to be this big breakout play. But again, I've been wrong about things like that, guys. Like Juwan Jennings last year, I did not think was going to end up being a breakout after what he did in that week 3 game with Brock Purdy. I was completely wrong. But Juwan Jennings was playing in a loaded offense where he had been buried and we had never had a chance to truly see him. I've seen Kayshon Boutte for 2 years. So could he take a step in year 3? Yeah, totally possible. My gut tells me that this is going to be more about Stephon Diggs as he gets healthier, potentially even some of the other younger guys as the season goes on.
What was Diggs' route rate? Because they talked about potential snap count.
70%. Yeah, I think they're easing him back in. He gave you 8.7 PPR points, 16% target share. So he had 7 targets, only 1 less, than Boutte. So targets per route run were actually better than Kayshon Boutte.
Also, funny stat line that we can end on, Demario Douglas, 7 targets, 2 catches, -2 yards, 1 touchdown.
I know. I don't know.
Leave it at
he
that.
had 2 end zone targets. I mean, he's the slot guy. So yeah, you summed it up. Nothing else for me on him.
Patriots in Miami next week. And again, if that Dolphins defense looks anything like they did against the Colts, then I would be optimistic we see more out of May Henderson and this offense as a whole. Again, very much looking forward to Raiders taking on the Chargers on Monday Night Football. So guys, we have reached the late afternoon slate, but first a quick word to our friends over at Paramount Plus. Guys, you cannot count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. That's right, football fans. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. This year's schedule is absolutely stacked with rivalries and revenge games, including the next chapter of the epic Bills-Chiefs saga. So stay connected to it all on any device at home or on the go. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today and count on Sundays for another must-see season of the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. All right, Dwayne, we have reached the late afternoon slate. We appreciate everyone hanging out with us. As always, if you guys want to like and subscribe, even leave a review, it's a free country, so do whatever, but we always appreciate the support. Anyway, 49ers took down the Seahawks 17-13. San Fran covered as 2.5-point faves. The under cash at 43.5, which will be an occurrence for these late afternoon games. For the 49ers, Dwayne, really was a great effort from Brock Purdy because he had to once again do it without some of his top weapons. My God, man, this injury bug in San Francisco is ridiculous. Yeah. Juwan Jennings with a shoulder injury, which did not look good. He could not move his arm on the sideline. He's getting an MRI tomorrow. And then George Kittle with a hamstring, he will also be getting an MRI tomorrow. So that sucks. But again, when you do have Jake Tongues, Dwayne, who even needs George Kittle out there? So game-winning touchdown to Jake Tongues. And again, just the fact that happened and Purdy still threw for 277 and 2 touchdowns. The 2 picks weren't ideal, but again, it was just kind of a gutsy win for the 49ers. They lost so many games exactly like this last year where it seemed like they had it, and then all of a sudden Seattle was able to make that push at the end. So good team win, I would say, for San Fran. We'll see how healthy they are moving forward. So Dwayne, again, we got plenty of time on Monday and Tuesday to talk through some of these injuries. I hope Kittle and Jennings are better, but for now, we will talk about the healthy guys, which somehow includes Christian McCaffrey. Calf injury wasn't a problem here. This dude got force-fed the football.
Yeah, dominated. I will say Brock Purdy, if we don't have Kittle or Jennings, we will be downgrading him. To your point, we'll get more into the injuries. But CMC, 23.2 PPR points in this game, 75% of the snaps, 67% of the attempts, which was 22. 100% of the work inside the 5. You want to talk attempts, you want to talk snaps, whichever one you want to talk about. 100%, 100%. 77% route participation, just absolutely elite. That's CMC level stuff. 29% freaking target share. This dude had 32 opportunities, 22 attempts, and 10 targets with apparently a calf bothering him. 3.1 yards per carry. The trend continues on of a really crappy efficiency, but it doesn't really matter when you get fed that much like CMC. I'll just say real quickly, B-Rob was the clear running back too. He had 25% of the snaps, 27% of the attempts, which was 9 carries.
18.7 half PPR points as we have. That's like his floor on games like this, Dwayne, when he doesn't score touchdowns. That's how ridiculous of a performer Christian McCaffrey is in fantasy. That's why we continue to draft him in round one, despite, again, realizing that, like anyone else, it can come crumbling down, but I'm knocking on wood. And for now, CMC very much just working as the fantasy Hall of Famer that he has been for the majority of his career. Otherwise, Ricky Pearsall, Dwayne, putting together his third straight good game dating back to last year, caught 4 of 7 targets for 108 yards. You had a great call taking his over, so I am happy for you, my friend. Had to work for it a little bit. I think he caught 2 on like the first drive, and then you were probably sweating that, huh?
He did. Yeah. He had 2 for 39 in the first drive. So I had Daniel Jones over 23.5 rushing yards. That had hit. I had Drake May over 218. Of course, he crushed that. I had Debo over 44.5 receiving yards. He crushed that. And then Pearsall right away, first drive, has 39 yards, and I had to sweat it out. It was like the fourth quarter before he got over. I was like, oh my God, like this is not going to happen. So yeah, for those of you that played along, like hopefully, you put some good money on it. I got some good replies. A lot of people got some boosts. So nice. I put 50 on it, Ian, for 550. So I will take that. I didn't win $20,000 like our CEO, Mr. Elliot Chris, playing DFS with Daniel Jones in his lineup, but I'll take my 550. Ricky Pearsall, 21% target share, 87% route participation, 14.8 PPR points today. He had 2 end zone targets, 3.18 yards per route run, man. 53% of the air yards, and 19.4 ADOT. If you guys are watching the game, he did have a couple of deep ones.
I'm looking at our ranks right now. We talked about Tyreek Hill. Xavier Worthy's hurt. Not feeling great about T-Mac. Devontae Adams, he had a good game. We'll talk about him, shortly here. But Ricky Pearsall, Dwayne, if Kittle's missing time, if Jawan Jennings is missing time, why shouldn't Pearsall be ranked right next to McConkey and JSN?
Agree. He's a wide receiver. He's a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside in these games without those guys.
It's wild. We just drafted him as a wide receiver 3, and we like Ricky Pearsall. And yeah, you take away now literally the 3 biggest target competitors that he has in Ayuk, Kittle, and Jawan Jennings. That's what happens there.
Russell Gage doesn't scare you.
We even have Demarcus Robinson suspended for another 2 games. Like, this is crazy how pure this dude is running. But hey, playing good. And again, the 45-yard pearl from Purdy there at the end, really good, and helped put them in position to win the game. Meanwhile, for the Seahawks, Sam Darnold, 150 passing yards on the dot, as predicted by Mr. Matthew Friedman here on the Fantasy Life Show. Shout out Friedman, good call there. Didn't get the exact, Darnold ghost breakdown game that maybe we were hoping for as loyal, 49ers DST defenders, but did get the strip sack at the end by Mr. Nick Bosa. Go Buckeyes to go ahead and secure the victory there. So honestly, again, the one thing that Darnold did great, Dwayne, was existing in the, 2 to 3 seconds between getting the snap and throwing the football to Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Yeah, man. And look, this was a run-heavy team today. 23 pass attempts, 26 rushing attempts. So this was really more about the way they wanted to run the offense, in my opinion, than Sam Darnold. I mean, he was 16 of 23, but yes, absolutely fed Mr. JSN, who picked up right where he left off with his second half of year 2 breakout last year. 19.4 PPR points. You know what, guys? That's hard to do when your quarterback throws for 150 yards, but when you have a 59%, let me say that again, 59% target share. 13 targets for this guy. Obviously, that's unsustainable, but like he's a beast. That's what this is saying. Now, we're going to need more passing yards, or we're going to be saying the same thing that I said earlier about Garrett Wilson. If we think that we're going to be in a lot of games with under 200 yards passing, it's going to really make JSN more of a wide receiver 3. This week, he got so much of the work that it didn't matter. And I still think that we'll be in a balanced enough offense where we're going to get more than 150 yards passing. As much as Friedman likes to be a wet blanket, we'll see if he's willing to dial that up again. I'm like you. I don't think that was so much on Sam Darnold. I know it was the strip sack fumble at the end, but I mean, he couldn't really see it. Bosa's a good pass rusher. But yeah, JSN, Ian, 5.63 yards per route run. He played from the slot only 29% of the time. They let Cooper Kupp play more from the slot. He was doing it down the field, man. He had 90% of the air yards. 90%. You think 59% of the targets is crazy? Try on 90% of the air yards for size. 13.7 average depth of target, doing things we did not see from him last year, working mostly underneath. Oh, but you know what? They still got him the looks underneath. 23% of his targets still came on screen plays, and he did bump inside some. Played 29% from the slot. So moving him around, giving him design looks, and now working further down the field. And we talked about this. If there was a close comp to Geno as far as guys that can really like dot the I on these intermediate, throws. It really is Sam Darnold, man. For all the troubles he's had, like he can really spin it in that range, and it worked out great for JSN today.
If you tell Darnold where to go with the football, man, you give him a clean pocket, he can put it there, man. That dude spins a pretty ball. We saw that really for a duration of last year up until those final 2 weeks. So 177 air yards for JSN, man. That only trailed CeeDee Lamb on the week. There was meat left on the bone. He lost a fumble and 2 points, and he also had 83 unrealized air yards, which was the third most on the week. So again, we've seen some of these air yard games spike for him, but man, in this Kubiak offense, dude, I don't think Torrey Horton or Cooper Kupp or any of these guys are exactly going to be vying for the possibility. So honestly, they're different players. CD's, much, I think, just, make you miss in a phone booth type of player than a JSN. But the nuance that JSN can already play with as a 22-year-old at this point in his career, like he looked great out there, man. I know, and I've said before, like I thought last year was more Geno than anything, but he's a third-year freaking player. And just, again, that deep 40-yarder he had where you could just tell he kind of just manipulated the cornerback ever so slightly to create that separation. Very, very special. And again, just in general, Dwain, we were kind of talking about this before the season. Like, we just need, kind of a checklist of players. And I know you draft a ton of JSN, so I'm probably talking more to myself here. But, like, just, hey, 22-year-old, 1,100 yards, caught 100 passes. Let's not overthink it. Sam Darnold, just don't overthink it. Okay?
Yeah, and I think the nice thing with JSN, some of these other quarterbacks that we've talked about, like Bryce Young, like, he played like crap. And so we really need him to turn his game around for Tet. Sam Darnold didn't play bad. They just didn't throw the ball. So to me, like, I prefer that because I'm like, okay, well, if they throw the ball in future games, then we have outs here for JSN. It wasn't because Sam Darnold was terrible, as much as Matthew Friedman's going to want to tell you guys that. It was just because Clint Kubiak ran the ball the whole time. Now, again, this is going to be a run-heavy offense. The Saints were like that last year before the injuries really piled up on them. So I know they're going to run the ball, but I think it's a little different. I thought Darnold at least played well. They just didn't ask him to throw as much.
Next week, going to Pittsburgh. We just saw what Garrett Wilson, Justin Fields did. I'd be hard-pressed to believe JSN is going to be anything but a wide receiver 1 in our Fantasy Live consensus ranks. Would like to see, again, a bit more from the passing offense, both volume and efficiency-wise, before we get going too heavily in the paint with Cooper Kupp. That said, Dwain, we kind of buried the lead here because the biggest issue is this backfield. I think it's an issue. I tried to say it's an issue. We talked about this on a live real-time sports stream about this exact scenario unfolding because we saw people drafting Kenneth Walker in round 4, and then Zach Charbonnet in round 7. Okay. So the issue that we spoke about was what happens if Charbonnet rises up and splits the backfield, because I still, to this day, even after seeing what we saw today, I don't believe a takeover is happening. Could Charbonnet wind up leading the way? Okay. But I don't think KW3 is going away. And at least for 1 week, Dwain, that was the case. 50-50, not quite. 60-40 actually in favor of Charbonnet, man. Again, good for Charbonnet and everything. Like, this is obviously a good development for him, but man, if you did happen to draft both these dudes, like, you're not loving this right now.
No, but they are very run heavy, like we talked about. Now, they played a defense that played them pretty well today, so I think you're going to get some good things out of it. Again, it's an early data point, but it does make me go back to all the quotes, right, from head coach Mike McDonald, which was, we have a plan for Kenneth Walker. And apparently it wasn't just the preseason. What they meant is they have a plan for Kenneth Walker. And look, so if you drafted Kenneth Walker in round 4 or 5 of your fantasy draft, like, you obviously feel terrible. Like, I hate it. He gets a downgrade tomorrow in the utilization report. No way around it. Yeah. To your point, do I know that this is a split that's going to stick? I don't know, but it's the data point we have. I think also to your point, you really need a little bit more of a split to, like, feel really great, about Charbonnet. But I will say this is pretty close to what we just talked about earlier between James Conner and Trey Benson. I mean, it's in that ballpark. Right. I mean, Trey Benson was a little bit less, 35% of the snaps versus 40% for Walker. 12 attempts, though. If you just look at the attempts, 12 for Charbonnet, 10 for Walker. That just really makes both, if you own either one of those guys, to your point, you weren't super happy today. But I do think they're run heavy enough that you're going to get some good games. Ultimately, like, it was still really close. 13 overall opportunities for Walker was more than the 12 for Charbonnet. But Charbonnet did get the 2-minute offense, 82% of the 2-minute offense, which is the role that Kenneth Walker did own last year. So a little bit more passing down work for Charbonnet as well.
Charbonnet looked better, but that said, guys, I mean, his long run was 7. No Seahawk had a gain of 10 plus yards other than
Where are you putting Charbonnet? Like, you got to make a call, like running back, borderline running back 2 range next week.
On my bench against the Steelers, if I can help it, that's where I'm putting him, Dwain. But no, yeah, he's gonna be borderline RB.
Why the Jets just roasted him?
That's a good point. So,
yeah, and they have an injury with Hayward. Like, we'll see. But yeah, I think borderline RB2 for Charbonnet. We've got to downgrade Kenneth Walker to like low end running back 3 territory until like we see something different. It's just the way it is.
I was about to say, right now, Zach Charbonnet is our lead running back in Seattle. We are ranking him ahead of Kenneth Walker.
Yes, we have to.
Man, we have to.
I know. What a day.
What a day. All right. Next up, we have the 49ers traveling to the Saints. And again, Seattle going to Pittsburgh. Next up in the Fantasy Life show, though, we have the Broncos taking down the Titans 20-12. Good God. I'm in one survivor pool, Dwain. I thought I was about to get knocked out in week freaking 1 of this thing. So luckily made it past that. But Sean Payton's late game hijinks did not make it an easy sweat. So shout out to Cam Ward, at least for covering us 8.5-point dogs. The under did cash here at 42.5. So bad game from Bo Nix. He threw 2 picks. They were both inexcusable late throws that you just saw the cornerback breaking on basically as soon as he tossed it. Also lost a fumble out there. Just really never looked in control. He did a good enough job putting the ball up there for Cortland Sutton to make yet another dope contested catch touchdown. He had 61 yards in a score on the day, but couldn't get too much else going otherwise. So again, we saw Bo Nix look really good for large portions of last year. He also had some stretches where he wasn't as great. So I'm not going to freak out, Dwain, but I will say just maybe got a little too far in front of our skis, expecting more out of these complimentary options. For right now, it's Bo Nix still, low-end QB1 and Cortland Sutton. Everyone else, particularly with Evan Ingram now dealing with a calf injury, really need to have a very deep lineup, I think, to start confidently.
Yeah, I mean, we still had 4 design rushing attempts. He didn't do much with it. Bo Nix, 5 yards. Then he, gave away a yard on a kneel down. 5% scramble rate. So, I mean, still, he's doing his thing on the ground. It was a bad day passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. I'm not going to overreact to it too much. I will say there is definitely Bo Nix is a polarizing player. There are people that think he's completely scheme dependent, and then there are other people that are like, oh no, he actually did some good things towards the end of last year. Truth, somewhere in the middle typically with these things. So we'll see, but I'm not going to overreact right now because he still is ultimately one of these players that's not at the elite dual threat level, but he's in the middle, right? And so he's got this opportunity to spike in a couple of ways. So yeah, not going to overreact with Bo Nix. As far as the passing game options, Ingram did get hurt on the 6th drive, so that's not ideal. I don't know if you have any information on his injury. I didn't see him. Oh man, yeah, that's not ideal because it did knock him out of the game. So probably not playing next week. So we'll see. And here's the other thing, man: 5 drives before he was hurt, 50% routes for Evan Ingram. That's just gross. Yeah,
why? 15%. What are you paying for?
I don't. Well, he had a 27% targets per route run. So when he was out there, they were targeting him, but only a 15% target share because only out there half the time. I guess you have to get Lucas Krull and Adam Troutman on the field. I mean, I don't know, or maybe he was already dealing with an injury, but that scares the crap out of me for Evan Ingram because remember in the preseason stuff we saw that too, and I was like, guys, it's tough to gauge tight ends when you get 3 drives to look at them with the starters, but we saw this actually happened to Evan Ingram in one of those games, and now we saw it here. So I'm kind of skittish on Ingram, period. We'll see. You're to your point, they paid him. Hopefully it ends up working out. You're not just cutting him, but not ideal.
And this is what I was kind of talking about when we had the Kyle Pitts discussion, because we have guys like Ingram where there's a troubling usage. And then okay, I want to start Tucker Kraft over Kyle Pitts still. There's certain guys who I'm not just, trying to go 1 week down. But yeah, if Evan Ingram's only going to be playing half the freaking routes and now he's banged up, guys, we really do have to make these decisions, as crazy as they may have sounded a mere 48 hours ago. So again, not ideal with Ingram. We'll get more information on the calf. Did we see at least full-time roles for Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, Dwain?
No, 65% routes for Franklin, slightly ahead of Mims at 63%. So they really rotated. Pat Bryant had 0% of the routes. Again, This was early data. This came from the late games, and I was putting this together as I was watching the Sunday night football game. So these could be slightly different in the morning on these late games, but they're going to be approximately close. I'll say this. I still think Franklin in a deep league, Ian, like as a player you want to keep an eye on. He gave you 8.4 PPR points today, 65% routes, 16% target share, but a 21% targets per route run. So I still think he's the name I like the most outside of Sutton in the receiver room. Mims is going to make Friedman sad, but 2.2 PPR points, only 11% target share, and 25% of those were screens, which isn't necessarily always bad, guys. Like, we'll take the free looks, but he didn't do much beyond what he was getting on the screen looks.
Meanwhile, in the backfield, obviously had a lot talking about this two-headed committee, but guess what, Dwayne? It wasn't a two-headed committee. We had to get Tyler Beatty involved, and I just wanted to check this real quick to see if it was a pass blocking thing, because, guys, J.K. Dobbins was the lead back, okay? Numbers I have, 52% snaps, 16 rushes, 2 targets. R.J. Harvey, 31% snaps, 6 rushes, 1 target. Beatty, only 17% snaps and 6 targets, Dwayne. Only 1 snap did he actually get qualified as a pass blocking snap. Okay. He was out there to go catch the football. Why was that not RJ Harvey? I don't know, but it wasn't. And that sucks.
And this is Sean Payton. I mean, he will do this kind of stuff. So if you've got RJ Harvey, it was terrible, 7.9 PPR points. Dobbins was fine at 14.8, but it's a 3-way committee right now. And again, the Beatty role wasn't huge, but to your point, they're putting him out there to catch the passes. The dude had 33% of his targets came on screens. And if you look at his targets per route run, it was 50%. Like, when he's out there, they're throwing him the ball. Like, he's basically in the Jaleel McLaughlin role that we saw, like, not last year, but 2 years ago, when it was like, okay, when this dude's on the field, they're going to throw him the ball. Sean Payton known for this stuff. So RJ Harvey, guys, if you've got him, you just got to hold him. He's going to get a downgrade in the utilization report tomorrow. You can't. It's going to be tough, man. Like, he's going to be in the running back 3 low end. Like, it's going to be tough. I still think RJ Harvey is going to give you value this season. I really do. And these rookies sometimes start like this, but he is not like one of the other rookies we talked about, like Genty, or whenever we talked about Amari and Hampton, where they've got the role and it was just bad efficiency. He doesn't have the role. Now, he popped a long run that looked beautiful. I mean, he averaged 11.7 yards per carry because of the long one. And he still had, he had 33% route participation. He did get targeted once. I mean, they used him in all the ways. I mean, he got some carries, got a target, just wasn't out there enough, man.
I just hated it was early, and I'm trying to check right now. I think it was Beatty. Yeah, like they were targeting Beatty on the first drive of the game, man. I literally, because, I've red zone on, I had the quad box going. Like, they ran this cool design where it was like a wheel. It was like a play action, and then Beatty ran a wheel. And I literally thought to myself, like, oh, they're doing that for Harvey already? Like, this is awesome. And then I was like, wait, what number? Oh, my God, Tyler freaking Beatty again. So he started doing this last year, Dwayne. Everyone was like, whoa. And then he had the injury that put him on IR.
Beatty was a good receiver in college, man, out of the backfield.
Yeah. So you mentioned the 50-yard run by Harvey. And again, like Travion, like other guys, we are expecting these roles to grow, but for the time being, cannot confidently be starting Harvey as anything more, again, as an RB3 or flex, like you said. J.K. Dobbins, low end, borderline RB2 at this role. They're in Indianapolis next week, so.
Yeah, 52% of the snaps, 57% of the attempts. So really a similar role to what we saw with James Conner that we talked about earlier.
Yep.
And he just has 2 other guys getting some snaps instead of 1. So yeah, I think Dobbins is that borderline running back 2, maybe even low end running back 2 right now. Again, how long will it stay that way? We don't know, and it could change any week, but I think that's the direction that we have to head as far as week 2 goes.
Titans are a run defense too. When T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons are healthy, they can be tough to kind of move against. So it was good to see Dobbins still show some burst on that touchdown run, was able to break some tackles at the second level as well. With the Titans, again, weren't expecting much of anything from them in this tough spot. And I'm going to say it, guys, next week against the Rams, seeing what that defense was able to do today as well, I wouldn't necessarily be expecting that to be the sort of, breakout performance for Cam Ward either. So end of the day, man, Titans average just 2.4 yards per play. This is just the 13th time a team has been held under 2.5 since 2020. They were 2 for 14 on third down conversions. It was miserable, man. Cam Ward, 112 yards passing, 6 sacks. He was pressured on 47% of his dropbacks. I'm not sure if it was a joke or not, but they showed some guy in the stands and people were saying it was Cam Ward's dad, and he looked about how I would have looked if I had to kind of consume my son's performance like that, Dwayne. So it was ugly. Calvin Ridley, even when he was actually getting thrown the football, managed to drop 3 of them. That was the second most on the week, behind only CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Alec Manor had a week high, 120 unrealized air yards. I'm going to be really hard pressed, other than Ridley as a wide receiver 3, Dwayne, to trust anyone in this passing game until we can verify that, yeah, they can move the ball.
Yeah, I mean, 2.5 fantasy points today for Cam Ward. I mean, you mentioned the 112 yards.
That's good.
Yeah, 4 yards per attempt. And he didn't run the ball either. You mentioned the 6 sacks as well. So it was a very tough day for Cam Ward, but also, the best defense in the league probably. So, I mean, now the Rams, also a good defense.
That's the
problem. I don't think they're on the Broncos level. So, I mean, I'll feel a little better about them next week. I mean, to your point with Ridley.
Got the Texans after that.
Yeah, I know. It's you went Jerry Seinfeld right there. They got the Texans after that. 94% route participation, though, for Ridley. He was out there, 32% of the targets with 24% of the air yards. The nice thing with Ridley that I do want to mention, 8.6 average depth of target, Ian. So another one of these guys that we've seen pretty much having to go for the prayer yard menu, working underneath, working intermediate. So I think ultimately that works to his favor at some point. To your point, when will we be able to say that we're going to feel better than a wide receiver 3 about Ridley because of the matchups? It might be a month or so. He did have a screen target. He had an RPO target, worked some from the slot. So I think that's positive. If you do play in a deep league, I do want to say, Alec Manor, to Ian's point, you're never going to start him next week. But we're looking for rookies that are playing. He's out there 82%. He had a 28%. He had a 28% target share today. So if you play in a deep league, Alec Manor should be on a roster. We're not saying to start him next week. Ian mentioned the air yards, 46% of them today, a 19 ADOT, average depth of target. He had 133 air yards today.
Chicky full-time role?
88% routes, baby, with 4.9 PPR points. 16% target share. So it's look, the passing game is really wrapped around these 3 dudes. Tyler Lockett had a 77% route share, but a 4% target share. So, and Lockett's not really been good for 2 years. So I think it's Ridley, Manor, Okonkwo. That's your top 3 options.
Tony Pollard, 19 total touches, did rack up 89 yards, did also lose a fumble. So again, we knew it was going to be tough sledding. 54 of his 60 rushing yards did come after contact. He is a volume-based RB2 who we will rank higher in matchups that we can see the Titans scoring touchdowns and lower in matchups such as today. So continue to treat him as such as long as Tajay Spears is sidelined. 3 more, everybody. We appreciate hanging out with us on the Fantasy Life Show. The Packers beat down the Lions 27-13, covering with ease as 1.5 point home faves. The under cash here at 48 points. So Jordan Love, Dwayne, I thought they were going to go out there and just completely cook them. They just didn't really even need to, honestly, the way the Lions weren't able to get too much going. But just that first drive, man, Love hit 6 different receivers, seam ball down on Tucker Kraft for a score. Later, he was hitting Golden and Dobbs deep as well.
Tucker Kraft on a deep one before that. It was probably
he did miss some on that. So again, just really one after another was able to go out there, made some big time throws, got everyone involved. That said, unfortunately, man, this was an offense last year where we had 4 different guys finish between 70 and 75 targets at the end of the year. And today, man, with 22 targets to go around, nobody had more than 5. And the one guy who did have 5 was playing with a broken foot, who we couldn't possibly trust to put into a starting lineup. So kudos to Jaden Reed for going out there, playing through the pain. He caught a touchdown on a cool little slot wheel where he more or less got left alone. But I will say, Dwayne, for the 2 of us who would really like to feel better about starting Matthew Golden sometime soon, this was not a great game, at least for that part of things.
Yeah, I mean, only 22 pass attempts today for the Packers because of what you said. They didn't need to. They ran the ball 25 times. So when Love goes 16 of 22 for 188, it's already going to be a tough day for everybody. But what made the day even tougher for Matthew Golden was, while we thought he was supposed to be this full-time player, based on what we saw in preseason, everything that we heard from the coaches. Earlier we talked
family
about
night. We can't family night.
Yeah. Earlier we talked about those data points stacking up in favor of certain players, that they stacked up here, and it did not go Matthew Golden's way. He will get a downgrade in the utilization report. Only 3.6 PPR points, a 57% route participation rate. So 9% target share. And it wasn't like he was just demanding the ball big time, on those routes. 15% targets per route run, and 50% of those targets came on screens. So they did design him some stuff, but it wasn't like he was out there earning this. I do think Golden eventually is the wide receiver 1 on the offense for the season, but much like some of these other rookies that we talk about. And this is the thing, guys, these rookies, we're going to hit on some of them right away. Some of them, it's going to take them more time. Right now, you got to put Matthew Golden into the bucket of putting him on your bench. You're waiting. You're not cutting him unless you play in a really shallow league. But right now, you can't have him anywhere near your starting lineup. You want me to really go? I'll go ahead and hit Reed real quick because you mentioned him, 13.5 PPR points, but only 52% of the routes. So again, didn't need to really throw the ball that much. So they played more of their heavy tight end stuff. They didn't really play the 11 personnel. That's part of it. But still, man, 23% target share, which means 42% targets per route run for a dude that apparently has a Jones fracture and doesn't care about it. He doesn't care if there's not any blood to his fifth metatarsal. Dude says just F it. He had one RPO, 3.75 yards per route run. Having said all of that, am I going to trust Jaden Reed as a wide receiver 2 next week? No way. No freaking way. Like, he's still going to be down there in the wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 4 territory because there's also risk. Like, what if he gets hurt? What if he re-injures himself? So I want to see like some full practice participations. Hat tip, dude. Baller, going out there, playing through the pain and getting it done. But man, like, this is still not an ideal role.
It's September 8th, Dwayne. If we're saying this on October 8th, we need to accept that Jaden Reed is built different and we can just trust him.
But we couldn't last year. We said that in the September last year because it was so great. And we're like, no, trust him in October. And then eventually in November, we said, forget everything we said. Don't trust September. Now you got to look at October. And he kept sucking. So look, Jaden Reed's in my breakout article from this year. Like, he actually had the same profile, almost exactly the same as JSN. So I believe you and we're believers, but we still haven't seen the routes and there's still the foot thing to deal with. I mean, I would sell him high if someone was really I don't know how high 13.5 points is, guys. So don't like send me a trade where you got Michael Mayer for him. That's not what I'm looking for here. But like, I would be willing to deal the guy.
No, I hear you. I don't think you can get too much for him. I mean, you're right about last year. He had the starkest first and second halves, splits than pretty much anyone out there. So I'm just saying, like, the foot thing, we should accept at some point that he is actively playing through it. Again, I'm not going to do that next week. I'm with you, but at some point we need to have that tough conversation. So Josh Jacobs, 87% snaps, 20 combined carries and targets. The only reason why he's not a top 3 or 4 running back is because they don't use him as much in the passing game as some of those guys. But man, you know what? Saquon doesn't get fed either. Josh Jacobs, you're starting him in all leagues of shapes and sizes, and you're feeling good about that. Tucker Kraft, again, had a nice touchdown. Last thing on the Packers, Dwayne, Kraft, every route roll pretty much.
Yep, 83% routes. We can move on.
Fantastic. The Detroit Lions looked like absolute dog crap. Jared Goff took 4 sacks, 4.2 average target depth. Again, man, when he doesn't have Ben Johnson, doesn't have Sean McVay, I don't know. God. People were asking some questions. So the entire offense looked disjointed, though. I mean, they couldn't run the ball. Jahmyr Gibbs, 19 yards rushing. Dave Montgomery had 25. Hilariously terrible Jahmyr Gibbs receiving line, 10 catches for 31 yards per ESPN's Field Yates. That is the most catches in a game where a player had at least 10. I'm sorry, the least receiving yards in a game where a player had at least 10 catches in NFL history. Yeah, yikes. Wow. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 45 yards. Sam Laporta ended up having the best game, but that was almost more so due to him just racking up some garbage time numbers. Like the Bengals, Dwayne, are you content to throw this one out, or do you think there could be a deeper problem here?
Look, man, I'm not going to worry about the Lions. This is kind of like what we talked about earlier with the Bengals. I'm going to throw this one in the trash. I will say, like, obviously, Goff is not a guy that we were super high on. We thought he was fine, but we basically told people you probably want to shy away. He's going to be due for regression. I don't think it's going to be this bad. Like, I don't think it's going to be this bad. I mean, we still have playmakers, man. We got Gibbs, we got Monty, we got Laporta, we got Amon-Ra, we got J-Mo, you got Isaac Tesla back here making freaking this dude just catches touchdowns like every time he runs a damn route. So it is unreal. So I tend to say what you say, Ian. Let's just go with the AA Ron. Relax. Let's just relax on this one, man. Like, I'm not going to read too much into it. Tell me what you want. You want the running backfield splits? You want receiver stuff? What do you want to hear?
Was it still like 50-50, mostly Gibbs and Monty?
65% of the snaps to Gibbs, but 41% of the attempts to him, where Monty had 52% of the attempts, but 39% of the snaps. So that could have been game script as well because they were trailing. So 65% route participation for Gibbs is probably what pushed him up. But seeing those rush attempts where they were at 11 for Monty and 9 for Gibbs doesn't necessarily, scream that we're going to have this huge role from Gibbs. Having said all that, guys, we love Gibbs. Like, it's 15 fantasy points, in a game where really everything went wrong. Like, yes, he did get the targets, which weren't, very efficient, but he still came through.
And again, similar to our conversation on Bengals Browns, hat tip to the Packers defense, man. Micah
Yeah,
was
man.
obviously already making his presence felt, obviously making Dwain and I and the rest of the Cowboys fans very, very sad. I actually got a funny what my mom texted me. She was watching some games. She's a diehard Cowboys fan. My mom goes at 6:37 p.m. That Zach Parsons made just killed me. Sorry,
My
Mom.
dad texted me and he said, Jerry just won another Super Bowl for the Packers.
For the Packers. So again, shout out Isaac Tesla. Dude, he got 3 touchdowns in the preseason. He has another one now. He only had 3 touchdowns in 13 games at Arkansas last year. Like, this is freaking
They had
crazy.
the audacity to hold this man to a 7% route participation. What the heck, man? Khalif Raymond was out there as well. Look, Khalif Raymond, you and I talk like one of these low-key ballers. Like, he actually is good when he's on the field. He just never does get a full-time role. Khalif Raymond led the way with a 77% route participation. I have a hard time believing they're going to be able to keep Tesla off the field, but right now he's only a bench stash.
Packers against the Commanders on Thursday Night Football again. Lions will be taking on the Bears in the Ben Johnson Bowl. That should be a fun one. 2 more, ladies and mostly gentlemen. We got the Rams taking down the Texans 14-9. You could guess it was another under 43.5. The Rams did cover, though, at 3 points. So Matthew Stafford had some pretty sick throws out there. I mean, got Devontae Adams down the sideline. That was awesome. And the touchdown, the lone touchdown of the day through the air to Hunter Long was another nice pass. Kind of hilarious, Dwayne, that in a game where Puka Nacua was in the medical tent twice, was dealing with potential concussion, quietly had 130 yards on 10 catches. That's like where we are with the guy. I mean, just racks up 23 PPR points. And it's like, yeah, I guess that was an okay game for him. So again, Puka doing Puka things. Devontae found his way to 51 yards. I mean, just again, it's a situation where they had to face what we consider maybe the best defense in the league or one of them. So next week in Tennessee, expecting bigger things from the passing game, but very much still just going through Puka and Devontae. I want to talk more so, Dwayne, about the running back room because, man, we were hearing it all offseason. Jarquez Hunter, look why they drafted him. Blake Corum, 1A, 1B. Turns out it's still the Kyron Williams show.
Yeah, we don't have to spend long on the Rams. It's the same as last year. Just insert Adams in for Cooper Kupp when he was healthy. I will say Puka got to play from the slot more, which he didn't as much last year, 56% of the time. He's only out there for 69% of the routes, guys. He still had a 39% target share. That's a 50% targets per route run. He was giving JSN a run for his money today on the target share leaderboard. So, yeah, I mean, Kyron, 78% of the snaps, man. Took it all. Corum was the running back too. We did not see Jarquez Hunter. He might have been inactive. Healthy scratch. There we go.
So I will say, as much as we know Blake Corum standalone value isn't there, obviously he is the clear-cut handcuff for Kyron right now.
We don't know. They might split it some, but we have seen McVay lean into one guy. If you're putting a chip on one of these backs as a handcuff, I agree with you. It's Corum.
Corum would be the recommended waiver ad. Wouldn't rank him as an RB1 immediately. Last thing, real quick, Dwayne, was there any rhyme or reason to the tight end room? I could not make any sense of it.
65% routes to Higbee, and then Parkinson and Allen were doing their thing. No Ferguson. It was gross.
I checked if Ferguson was active. I think he was.
Yeah, no snaps, though.
If I see one more Rams video of their draft next year, hyping up some dude that they just decided to not even play in September, man, I am going to be mad online. Sorry, last thing, only because it's for my 32-team league. Did Tutu Atwell even have a full-time role? They're paying him
59% routes, 4% target share.
Something named Xavier Smith.
But they use more of the tight end rotation stuff today. You know how they do. It kind of depends on the matchups and the way the game script works out. So it's going to be hard to pick the games though where Atwell's in that full-time role.
All right, let's talk about another just disgusting offense performance before we get to the best offensive performance of the day. The Houston Texans, Dwayne. It turns out shuffling your offensive line with players who aren't really any better and then adding a guy in Nick Caley who, based on what I could tell, really good article from The Ringer, Stephen Ruiz got to interview him. It seems like they put their eggs in the basket of letting C.J. Stroud take more control of the offense. They basically said, good luck, here's a supporting cast that has one receiver that puts any level of fear into anyone. That is Nico Collins. And then a bunch of washed, old, slow guys with a horrendous offensive line. That's what we're working with at this point. I'm not saying CJ Stroud is completely clear of the blame and everything. Jared Verse and the Rams are a good defense. But, like, what was that, man? Dalton Schultz and Nico Collins had the same amount of targets. You can't throw Nico a couple screens. Remember the first freaking drive against the Cowboys last year, Dwayne? It didn't count, but Nico's going 75 yards. You can't pull out a couple of those?
Yeah. Yeah. Here's what I'll say. Like, this is variance. This happens to the best wide receivers in the league. They have their boom games. They have their 5.5 PPR games. That's what we're chalking this up to Nico. You mentioned the other receivers. It was just a massive rotation. Hutchinson, 68%, Higgins, 41%, Noel, 38%. Maybe one of those younger guys can step up. You get Christian Kirk back. Maybe that helps things. You mentioned Schultz. Yes, tied Nico. But still, he didn't even have a full-time role. 65% routes. You can't even use Dalton Schultz. And come on, CJ Stroud. Like, we're not putting it all on you, but come on, man. Like, this looks more like last year than the year before.
Yeah, a few too many just jump balls to Jaden Higgins and Xavier Hutchinson that were nearly picked off, man. He was lucky to only throw one pick in that. Again, 3 sacks. Hilariously, they still had a chance to win it at the end. Dario Ngubawale lost a fumble. So I guess, Dwayne, the one slimmer of hope is maybe that gets – not that we don't love us some Dario Ngubawale here on the Fantasy Life Show, but hopefully that gets him benched because there are 4 running backs and no one could even hit a 50% snap rate.
Yeah, so Chubb led the way, the quote-unquote bell cow. We got the bell cow quote, before the game. Nick Chubb's going to be our bell cow. Guys, everything's relative to the coach that says those words. Like we learned with Jalen Warren. Context matters with these people. 57% of the attempts, though, he did lead the way. He gave you a big, fat 6 PPR points, though. So how about that? None of the 2-minute work, 27% of the routes. Like, look, behind a bat, I give him credit, man. 4.6 yards per carry behind that dumpster fire of an offensive line. Like, got to give Nick Chubb a little bit of hat tip on that. You talked about all the other guys. It was running back 2 by committee, man, which is terrible. Dare led the way with 26% of the snaps. We had Woody Marks at 12%, and our boy Dame Pierce, 12%. He can be cut.
Yes, he can. So Nick Chubb, 4-6 missed tackles. I thought
cut all those dudes.
My expectations for Chubb were low. I guess he kind of bypassed that. That said, man, do I trust the Texans to open up lanes against the Buccaneers next week? No, I don't really trust them to do it against anyone other than the Carolina Panthers, man. So until they play
Vita Vea out there by himself would crush this line.
Just one nose guard, 5 linebackers beyond.
Just blowing up the whole backfield. Good job.
All right, guys. That's going to take us to the main event. Bills Ravens, time for our DraftKings closing line. Shout out to our friends over there at DraftKings. Guys, Bills. Last one, everybody. We will keep these shorter in the future, but it's week 1. We're pumped. We got a lot to talk about. So Bills took down the Ravens 41-40. Ravens did not cover as 1.5-point faves because they lost. The over cashed at 50.5. Again, first time being able to say that for a while. So just incredible, Dwayne. It's one of the best regular season games I can remember because it seemed like Baltimore was going to run away with it, man. The Bills had no answers for Derrick Henry. This was 40-25, I believe. And then when the Bills weren't able to get that 2-point conversion, now, unfortunately, my guy Keon Coleman couldn't come down with. I wrote him off. They did not write back. Josh Allen, just incredible, man. 394 through the air with 2 touchdowns. Scored another 2 rushing touchdowns near the goal line because he is arguably the most fantasy-friendly quarterback we've ever seen. If it's not him, then it's probably the guy who was on the other sideline. So James Cook had a touchdown, could have had more. He got stopped at the 1-yard line, I think, on 2 separate drives and wasn't able to cap it off. Also, man, had a freaking electric 51-yard catch and run on a short dump down from Josh Allen. So Keon Coleman, buck 12 through the air and a touchdown. Love seeing that from my guy, Khalil Shakur, 6 for 64. 41 points, Dwayne. It's Josh Allen, the Bills. Cinema.
Yeah, Josh Allen's awesome. Shout out Chess Liam, who maybe is just the ultimate strategist at best ball. Just draft your favorite team, which happens to be for him the Bills every year. and just watch them score fantasy points. They all scored. I mean, 21.2 PPR points for James Cook today. 48% of the design rush attempts, though. 46%, 59% of the snap. So a little bit better snap share, but still in this part-time role. Ty Johnson, Ian, 32% of the snaps.
He's good.
Ray Davis, 10%.
Yeah.
How about that? Real quick on the receivers, though, because this is your dude. You should get hyped. Are you ready to get pumped?
Oh, yeah.
Keon Coleman, man, 96% route participation, led the team with a 24% target share, had 8 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown. So your call on drafting Keon Coleman this year looking really good. Coming in behind him, you already mentioned Khalil Shakir and his stats, but he had a 20% target share, a 90% route participation. I know, guys, last year, Shakir, we have these games, man, where he's like 70%. This was a trailing game script. Can have something to do with it because they're going to use less of the 12 personnel and stuff, but good game for Shakir. And then Josh Palmer was the number 3 receiver with a 78% route participation and a 20% target share. He scored 11.1 PPR points versus 12.4 for Shakir.
Now, I will say, Josh Allen threw 46 passes today, okay? He hit 40 once last year. But
still 24% targets for Keon. That's good. And not leaving the field, man. I mean, getting the work down the field. He's going to have a lot of games where he doesn't have to throw for this much. But still, that's the number 1 wide receiver on the team this week. So, I mean,
I thought Keon looked good. He looked like a big, really athletic guy who, the corner that was on him runs a 4.2 or whatever. They kept bringing that up.
Not playing from the slot still. It was all outside. 6% of his routes from the slot. And the tight end split. I don't think there's really anything to add. They split the role, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. So Kincaid came through with the 14.8 PPR points, but on a 9% target share.
Keon even left some meat on the bone, bro. He caught the 1 2-point conversion and went out of bounds. And then he, on the game-sealing catch,
he fell.
Got shoestringed. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, awesome game from Keon. No, Dwain, we're not going to rank him top 24 next week. But I'll tell you what, it's, again, one of those things where he's going to be approaching now that top 36, if not cracking it. And I'm just going to feel a bit more confident overall starting the guy. So, good stuff. Keon, Khalil Shakir leading that passing game. Dalton Kincaid a little bit tougher because Dawson Knox continues to be involved because guess what? He's a good real-life football player. Then with the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, dog. Derrick Henry, dog. Zay Flowers, also a dog. DeAndre Hopkins, what a freaking touchdown catch. 29 yards.
Catches today, and that
not playing enough, but Zay Flowers, man, how about that?
Zay Flowers with a 100% route participation and 28.1 PPR points on a 47% target share. Average depth of target in this one was 10.1. He had 53% of the air yards. He had 33% of the screen targets. 31% of his reps from the slot. Like, here's the thing with Zay. He does these things in and then he disappears. So we're going to need to see it again, man. Like he's done this for 2 years in a row to us. And we're like, oh my God, it's happening. Like he's playing in this role that we love. And then the next week he's like, has a 2-yard ADOT. So let's see what happens. Obviously, this was a great game for him. He's obviously a breakout candidate, after what he's done for his first 2 years, even though I did not end up drafting as much of him. He was in the breakout candidate article, and he had similar breakout rates to some of the other guys that I did take a lot, and I didn't take my own advice. So, maybe I'm just hoping that I see a 2-yard ADOT next week because I'm just miserable about it. Mark Andrews, Ian, without Isaiah Likely.
Yeah.
You want to guess the route participation?
The route participation wasn't even there.
We'll start there.
1 target.
Well, yeah, but 68%. Like I would have thought it'd be like 80% with no Isaiah Likely. No, because Charlie Kohler needs to have a 41% route participation. Yes, 1 target for Mr. Mark Andrews. Guys, don't freak out about it. Mark Andrews played good down the stretch last year. Like these things happen, but the 68% route participation is definitely not ideal when you don't even have Isaiah Likely.
Final point on Zay Flowers. He tied for the league lead with 100-yard games last year. We've seen these booms. This was a career high for him, but he also, Dwain, had 8 games with under 40 yards. So I'm with you. I believe in the talent. Maybe we are just wrong for not drafting more of the guy and trusting that talent, but it is still an offense that I think we'll get other guys involved. And again, Lamar, what'd he throw? 19 times? That's going to happen. So again, maybe it doesn't matter. I think Zay Flowers should be on the U.S. Olympic flag football team. This dude is shifty as all hell out here, but man, we'll see what happens. Final note, Keaton Mitchell, healthy scratch. Rasheen Ali, maybe a little more special teams, but he was the guy backing up Derrick Henry alongside Justice Hill. Derrick Henry, Dwayne, only 28 more touchdowns to get to my 30 touchdown bowl call. Are you starting to sweat?
Man, yeah, not dude. Like, looked great. Zoe came in here and told me earlier today. She goes, "My friends and I are drafting a fantasy team this week," and I'm like, "Awesome, take Derrick Henry."
Take Derrick Henry. And with that, Dwayne, we're going to do it. Anything else you want to get off your chest to the fine people?
All good. We'll have the utilization report coming out tomorrow where I'll get more into what is this? What are we starting to think about as far as upgrades, downgrades? Some of these things, it's tough to make those calls on the fly here. But yeah, that'll be out tomorrow.
2:25 a.m. I'm going to bed. I got some scheduled tweets out, so hopefully they're not messed up because I am not going to be awake for a little bit while after those go out. So we'll see what happens, Dwayne. But happy week 1. We did it, man. Everybody.